Chapter 2466. Ning Shu sold the house to the highest bidder and it was quickly sold off. When Qin Ji Shui returned home, he found that he couldn't even open the door with his keys. He then called Ning Shu and was told that they'd moved and gave him an address. Qin Ji Shui was flabbergasted. How could she be so capable? After such a long time, they'd already bought a house and reached the location of the new house. It was a house that was much smaller than before. Qin Ji Shui couldn't get used to it. We haven't bought a new house yet. We still have to look at the real estate, so we'll stay here for now, Ning Shu explained. Qin Ji Shui was very unhappy. Living in a place like this, was the family really short on money? Why did they have to sell the house? In front of his daughter, he couldn't tell her not to learn the piano. Qin Ji Shui's heart wavered a little. Should he not let Yuan Su Ci work? Right now, the entire family's livelihood was on his shoulders. He suddenly felt a little pressured, but this feeling was immediately ignored by Qin Ji Shui. Although the house was a bit small, family warmth was also good. Although he thought this way, Qin Ji Shui's heart couldn't lift. He thought about all sorts of things and even thought about how that hooligan didn't harass Tianyu again. Ning Shu looked at the absent-minded Qin Ji Shui. He was in Chao's camp, but his heart was elsewhere. TSK, Ning Shu had already asked a private investigator to help take some photos. When the time came, they'd go to court against Qin Ji Shui to fight for Lulu's custody. Lulu definitely wouldn't be given to Qin Ji Shui. She had a stepmother and a stepfather, especially since Qin Ji Shui liked Tianyu so much. Tianyu couldn't say anything. Even if Tianyu was willing to spread her love, she'd still have her own child. Thinking about the money for the child's diapers, milk powder, and education fees, Qin Ji Shui who didn't have a house already. Although he'd get a share of the money, he'd be in a tight spot. Let's just go with the poetry. When the basics of life weren't guaranteed, one wouldn't pursue higher spiritual pleasures. Ning Shu chuckled. Lulu looked at Ning Shu and asked, "Mommy, what are you laughing at?" "Mommy's happy." Tianyu who was confessed was furious. In the end, that Wei Dong came again on a broken motorcycle the next morning. Tianyu was so annoyed that she was about to explode. "I'll drive you to work," Wei Dong said. Seeing Wei Dong acting so familiar with her, her blood vessels were about to explode. The way he acted as if he was her boyfriend was really annoying. Tianyu did not want to have anything to do with him, especially since she was a forensic doctor and he was a thief. Tianyu didn't get into the car, so Wei Dong drove behind her. Tianyu sped up, trying to get rid of Wei Dong behind her. Wei Dong got out of the car and reached out to grab Tianyu's arm. "Why are you running?" Tianyu was a little scared now. In the past, she felt that although Wei Dong was a petty thief, he treated her well. Now, Tianyu was afraid that the hooligan would hurt her. "Let me go. Let me go." Tianyu was very excited. She bit Wei Dong's arm. Wei Dong was in pain and let go. Tianyu immediately crossed the road to escape. In the end, she was hit by a car head-on. Tianyu was scared out of her wits and stood still. The car braked and stopped before it hit Tianyu. Tianyu sat on the ground and Wei Dong hurried to help her. "Don't come near me." Tianyu pushed Wei Dong away. The two of them pulled at each other in front of the car, which made the people in the car speechless. "Hey, what are you doing? Why are you blocking the road?" The driver got out of the car and said to them. The car behind them kept honking. Tang Boda kept looking at his watch in the car and called the driver back. "Don't hit her directly. If she's afraid, she will avoid it if she wants to live." The driver was speechless. What if his skills were not good? He really hit her. "Please help me. This man has been pestering me. Please." Tianyu's arm was grabbed by Wei Dong. The man's strength was pulling her to the side of the road, which made Tianyu very scared. Tang Boda rolled down the window and said to the driver, "Go and help her." The driver got out of the car and said to Tianyu directly, "Miss, our boss wants to see you." Tianyu saw the man in the car and felt that he looked familiar. Then she remembered that he was the man whose wife had died and said that she deserved it. Did she really need to ask him for help? Out of the wolf's den and into the tigers. However, Tianyu still shook off Wei Dong's hand and got into the car. She instantly felt as if she had entered a freezer, feeling especially cold. The man beside her was like an ice cube. The car started and the driver asked Tianyu, "Where do you want to get off?" Wei Dong watched the car drive away hatefully. There were teeth marks on his arm, all from that woman's bites. Wei Dong suddenly realized something. This woman really didn't love him. However, there was a voice in his heart that told him that she liked him. Otherwise, she wouldn't share her emotions with him. But why was she treating him like this now? "I'll get off at the city police station," Tianyu said and glanced at Tang Boda. "Thank you for saving me." Tang Boda was a man of few words. He glanced at her and didn't say anything. Tianyu was snubbed and didn't say anything. If Tianyu got together with Qin Jishui, it would be a forensic novel. If she got together with Tang Boda, it would be a domineering CEO who loved his forensic wife. Ning Shu still didn't know that Tang Boda was actually the second male lead. Also, he didn't know what kind of physique Tianyu had. She only attracted married men. Moreover, one of them must have a dead wife. When they arrived at the police station and Tianyu got off, Tang Boda finally spoke. "What's your name?" "Tianyu." Tianyu didn't understand why he asked for her name. "Are you married?" Tang Boda asked again. Tianyu wanted to roll her eyes. "Unmarried." "That's fine. Marry me." Tang Boda said calmly, but this shocked Tianyu so much that she almost jumped up. "Fuck, this person must be crazy. I'm sorry, I won't marry you." Tianyu felt that it was an unlucky year. Otherwise, she wouldn't have met so many crazy people. "Why? Do you have someone you like or someone you're married to?" Tang Boda asked indifferently. "Yes, I have someone I like, so I can't marry you. Your wife just died not long ago and you want to get married. Do you even have a heart?" Tianyu couldn't help but say. In the interrogation room, he said that his wife was an idiot and deserved to die. Whoever marries this kind of person would be unlucky. If that's the case, then forget it. I find you pleasing to the eye and lack a wife. Since you have someone you like, then forget it. Tang Boda said and let the driver drive away. Tianyu scolded him in her heart for being crazy. Marrying someone pleasing to the eye? How could marriage be so casual? She was harassed by hooligans early in the morning, and now someone suddenly proposed to her, /BK. Chapter 2467. The one who was proposed to was a rich man. Although he was rich, he was cold and heartless. His wife died, but he didn't shed a single tear. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that this person would actually tell her that he wanted to get married. She already had someone she liked. But in the following period of time, Tianyu often met Tang Boda. The first time was a coincidence, but what about the second and third time? So, she met another stalker. Fuck. Tang Boda coldly asked Tianyu to get in the car and send her to work. Tianyu rejected him directly. She had seen his cold side. She would not marry such a man unless her brain was eaten by a zombie. It was obvious that he needed a wife at home and left her at home. Otherwise, his ex-wife wouldn't have been so lonely that she looked for another man. Did he really think that he could get rid of women just because he had some money? Humans were emotional creatures. Why would they get married if they didn't have feelings for each other? Qin Jishui had also noticed that Tianyu had been picked up by luxury cars recently. At first, he felt that it had nothing to do with him, but the more frustrated he became, the more he couldn't help but ask. "You have a boyfriend?" Qin Jishue asked. Tianyu looked gloomy. "Don't mention it." Recently, he had been pestered by some strange people. Qin Jishue also felt that Tianyu, this girl, was very popular. Thinking of this, he felt a little unhappy in his heart. He also didn't know what was going on with this unhappy feeling. "Since you don't want to be conflicted, then reject them, lest those people pester you," Qin Jishue instructed. Seeing Qin Jishue like this, Tianyu's heart was filled with sweetness. He cared so much about her. Tianyu had a kind of worship for Qin Jishue. This kind of worship stemmed from his job, and this worship evolved into admiration. Ning Shu received photos from the private investigator. These photos were of Qin Jishue and Tianyu walking together, looking very ambiguous. There were photos of Qin Jishue brushing Tianyu's hair, and there were photos of them eating together. Sometimes, when Qin Jishue sent Tianyu home, they would eat together. In short, there were quite a lot of such photos, but there were no key photos. It was to catch a couple in the act. However, what Qin Jishue pursued was a platonic love. That kind of situation didn't happen at all. This kind of mental derailment made him even more speechless. Ning Shu looked at Lulu, who was doing his homework. How should he tell this child? If he were to say it directly, he would feel that it was too exciting. This child would not be able to take it. Moreover, in the children's minds, their parents were considered inferior when they divorced. They would be despised and laughed at by their children. XXX, your parents are divorced. You're an unwanted child. The world of children was simple and cruel. But if she didn't get a divorce, she really couldn't take it lying down. Ning Shu sent the children to school. Ning Shu took the divorce agreement to the police station. Many people greeted Ning Shu when they saw him. Ning Shu's forced smile made those who saw him feel that something was wrong. Many people followed Ning Shu to the dissection room. When Ning Shu saw the two people talking and laughing in the autopsy room, his face fell. The people who gathered at the door immediately thought that this was a scene where a wife had caught her husband having an affair with another woman. Qin Jishue turned around and saw Ning Shu. He subconsciously furrowed his brows. What business do you have here? Even the onlookers felt that Qin Jishue treated his wife very coldly. He was clearly so patient with Tianyu, whether it was work matters or sending her home after work. If there was nothing between these two, no one would believe it. Watching a show and gossiping was a common trait for everyone. Even for these policemen, Qin Jishue and Tianyu did whatever they wanted in the police station without any scruples. They didn't care about the rumors at all. Ning Shu forced a smile and said to Qin Jishue, "I'm just here to see you." Sister-in-law. Tianyu smiled sweetly at Ning Shu. Ning Shu took a deep breath, giving people the feeling that his patience had reached its limit. Why haven't you been home recently? You're always working overtime. Qin Jishue saw his wife questioning him in front of so many people and said, there were a few murder cases recently. I've been very busy. Ning Shu, Qin Jishue, let's get a divorce. I can't stand your cold treatment anymore. No matter what I do, you're not satisfied with me. I already said that I want to quit my job, but I realized that whether I have a job or not, you treat me the same. Qin Jishue was stunned for a moment, as if he didn't understand. In the end, when he saw everyone whispering to each other, blood rushed to his head. What are you talking about? I know you're annoyed with me right now. You don't even want to see me. I'm here to bring you things, but you're already so annoyed, yet you can send your other female colleagues home. You don't have any patience for me at all. I've had enough of this kind of life. Ning Shu said tiredly. The surrounding people looked at Ning Shu with sympathy. Tianyu is only young. In terms of beauty and ability, how could she compare to Yuan Su? Moreover, the two of them had a child. Tianyu was stunned. She hurriedly waved her hand and said, "Sister-in-law, I really don't have that kind of relationship with Qin Ji. Really, you guys mustn't divorce because of me. Also, I don't want to be called a vixen. If you guys want a divorce, please wait until I finish my internship and leave this place." Ning Shu said coldly, "Do I have to pick the time when you're gone for a divorce? I can't divorce even if you're here." Qin Ji Shui pulled Ning Shu out of the autopsy room. When they were outside, he said impatiently, "What are you doing now?" Ning Shu stepped on her high heels and walked in front of Qin Ji Shui. Qin Ji Shui couldn't help but take a step back and look at Ning Shu. "What's the matter? Pay attention to your attitude. I'm an independent person. You're treating me and your wife with such an impatient attitude. Even if it's a marriage, it's only a cooperation between two people based on love. We're partners who strive for life together. It's a kind of contract spirit. I'm not your possession. You can do whatever you want." Ning Shu sneered. When there was no one else around, Ning Shu's aura was on full display. She looked at Qin Ji Shui coldly. "Didn't you say you're strong? Then I'll show you." Iron blood and tender feelings were hard to reconcile. Qin Ji Shui was a bit stuffy, especially the way his wife looked at him. He felt that the way his wife looked at him was simply amazing. As if he was mud on the ground. Ning Shu said, "I'm going to break the contract with you now. Moreover, you've violated the contract and violated the most basic mutual loyalty. I'm clear about the matter between you and Tianyu. I'm willing to give you face. Otherwise, as a national civil servant, do you think you can continue to work after this kind of thing happened? I have nothing to do with Tianyu." Ning Shu smiled and flipped her hair. "Is that so? Then let's go to court. You probably haven't seen me fight a lawsuit before, right? You can see how a Philistine lawyer fights a lawsuit. /BK. Chapter 2468. Qin Ji Shui was originally a man who wasn't good with words. After listening to Ning Shu's one-sided long speech, he concluded that the two were divorcing. Qin Ji Shui was really annoyed. "Stop messing around, okay?" Ning Shu took a step forward and Qin Ji Shui took a step back. Ning Shu said, "I'll warn you again. Watch your attitude. You're so impatient that you're not even willing to talk about serious matters. Do you think we can still continue? If you don't agree, you should think about the consequences." Qin Ji Shui retracted his annoyance and rubbed his brows. "Why do you want a divorce for no reason?" "Because I hate you. Also, you didn't abide by the contract rules and flirted with the little girl." Qin Ji Shui, "I'm willing to give you some face because you're the child's father, but you don't seem to want to talk to me. Just wait for the court summons." Ning Shu couldn't be bothered to talk to him anymore and took out the divorce agreement. "Take a look. You can sign it," Ning Shu said directly. "I don't agree to the divorce, Ning Shu interrupted him. "Don't make me look like I'm messing around. Qin Ji Shui, if you don't agree, we'll fight to the death." Qin Ji Shui looked at Ning Shu. He felt that his wife's current attitude, looking down on him, made him feel especially uncomfortable. Qin Ji Shui lowered his head and finished reading the divorce agreement. "Lulu belongs to you?" "Yes." "Can you be responsible for Luli's life? Can you guarantee that she'll continue to learn piano and receive a good education?" "You can't. What right do you have to let Lulu live with you? Also, you're the one at fault in this marriage. Don't say that it has nothing to do with Tianyu. I can't be bothered to listen. It's disgusting." Ning Shu's words weren't polite at all. She didn't consider Qin Ji Shui's self-esteem at all. Qin Ji Shui trembled in anger. How could this woman be so sharp and mean? How did Yuan Su become like this? Everything's fine. Why do you want a divorce? Also, you quit your job, Qin Jishue said. Ning Shu reached out a finger and poked at Qin Jishue's heart. Come, tell me. Do you like Tianyu? You're beating. Qin Jishue was stunned as he watched the other party's finger drawing circles on his chest. His heart almost couldn't help but beat faster. What a cowardly young man. You want a stable family, yet you seek excitement. You're afraid that your life will be stagnant. Qin Jishue, this old lady won't spoil you. Take the divorce agreement. Let me know when you sign it. If you don't, let me know too. Then, I'll tell you the court date. Ning Shu walked away, her high heels clicking against the floor as she waved her hand without looking back. Qin Jishue took a deep breath. Holding on to the divorce agreement, he didn't have the courage to sign it. Moreover, the child was still hers. Lei was the Qin family's child. Qin Jishue returned to the autopsy room. There were quite a few people there, and all of them were asking what had happened. There were also people who took a look at the divorce agreement in Qin Jishue's hands. There were also people who commented that their sister-in-law was indeed a lawyer. All the rules and regulations, as well as the division of assets, were accurate to 2 decimal places. Of course, the person who spoke received a bunch of supercilious looks. Was that the main point? Captain Wu swept a glance at Tianyu, telling Qin Jishue to think about it carefully and not let his head get hot. He was already a young man. He couldn't bear the torment. Qin Jishue was also over 30 years old. Qin Jishue considered it over and over again. In the end, he decided not to divorce because he was afraid of instability. Qin Jishue recalled the words his wife had said. What a cowardly young man. Qin Jishue felt that his current wife was like a lioness who had revealed her claws. Before, she could still hide a little, but now, she had no scruples. She didn't care about his feelings at all and acted recklessly. This made Qin Jishue feel very panicked. That day, Qin Jishue got off work and returned home. Ning Shu and Lei were eating. They were eating a fragrant soup. Daddy, you're back. Lei called out crisply. Qin Jishue took a deep breath and went to the kitchen to get a bowl. He scooped some soup and drank it. Ning Shu said to Lei, go do your homework after you're done eating. Mommy will check on you later. Okay. Once Lei left, Ning Shu retracted her gentle smile. She looked at Qin Jishue and said, have you thought it through? I'm not divorcing. Ning Shu held a spoon and supported his chin with his left hand. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Qin Jishue. Qin Jishue, who do you think you are? What right do you have to make me do this to you? Can't we talk nicely? Qin Jishue listened to these harsh words and tried his best not to get angry. Ning Shu drank a mouthful of soup. This was soup that had been simmered for a few hours. It tasted very good. Qin Jishue, don't take other people's tolerance for granted. I'm willing to talk to you because I don't want to make things difficult for Lei and see us tear each other apart like enemies. However, you don't seem to have seen my determination to divorce. Ning Shu said casually. I advise you to listen to my words. Don't think that I'm throwing a tantrum. Otherwise, the consequences would be serious. What do you want? What do you want me to do? Say it. Qin Jishue fidgeted with his hair. Ning Shu, sign it. Not divorcing. Ning Shu shrugged. Then there's nothing to talk about. Yuan Su. Qin Jishue stood up and placed his hand on Ning Shu's shoulder. He lowered his head and wanted to kiss him. Ning Shu stared at him with eyes that flickered with cold stars. Qin Jishue was stunned and didn't kiss him. You want to use this kind of method at this time. Moreover, I don't like the smell of your body. I even hate your smell. Sex was the first standard to test love. When she wasn't willing to have physical contact with him, what love was there to talk about? Smell could be the first standard to find a partner. Smell was sexual attraction. If you didn't like it, you wouldn't want to have physical contact with him. You didn't even meet the first standard. Qin Jishui stared blankly at Ning Shu. In the end, he said, even if we divorce, Lei should still be mine. TCH. Ning Shu couldn't hide his disdain. Lei is very expensive. You can't afford to raise her. She's precious. Why did I raise her to be so precious? It's to keep her away from vulgar interests in the future. Men who don't have any ability but demand things from women can't afford to marry my daughter. Away from those men who said you looked good without makeup when you bought a bag or lipstick, but stared at the beautiful women passing by. Qin Jishui's face alternated between red and white. He felt like she was scolding him indirectly. No matter what, Lei is a child of the Qin family. Qin Jishui said. You're busy with work when you're picking up your child, yet you have time to send your female colleague home. Qin Jishui, don't think that just because you gave Lei a life, you can treat her as your possession, your Qin family's possession. Be patient with your colleagues and your child. I know you're tired of this stagnant life, but you're also afraid of the waves that will arise next year, /BK. Chapter 2469. Qin Jishui couldn't refute because he really did send Tianyu home. There's a reason for that. And, I know. One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Ning Shu nodded in understanding. Qin Jishui, can you not be so sarcastic? If you can do it, why can't I say it? TSK. Ning Shu said directly, then let's meet in court. There's nothing to talk about. Go work, don't stand in front of me. I don't really want to see you. Qin Jishui took a deep breath and told himself to calm down. I'll sleep at home today. Ning Shu ignored him and took the bowl and chopsticks. At this moment, Qin Jishui became diligent and even helped wash the dishes. Since you like to wash the dishes, then do it. Being solicitous at this time is even more disgusting. Do you think I'm so easy to fool? Qin Jishui originally wanted to talk to her, but the other party turned and left. Qin Jishui sighed. After washing up, he took another shower and found his way to the bedroom. From behind, he hugged Ning Shu who was using the computer. Your smell is disgusting. Don't come near me. Ning Shu said directly. Qin Jishui was furious. Can you not be unreasonable? I'm respecting the choice of my heart. I don't want to have any contact with you. Qin Jishui, who gave you the courage? Qin Jishui's head was buzzing from anger. He picked up his clothes and left. Did you really think this matter was resolved with a slap? Ha ha ha. Qin Jishui kept dragging on and refusing to divorce. He wanted to deal with this matter coldly. He felt that his wife was angry and it would be better after her anger subsided. As a result, the relationship between Tianyu and Qin Jishui became more or less awkward. Tianyu asked Qin Jishui if it was because of her. Qin Jishui shook his head. This has nothing to do with you. I think I've really neglected her for a long time. That's why she wants a divorce. Then will you divorce sister-in-law? Tianyu asked. Facing Tianyu, Qin Jishui was a little hesitant. In the end, he said, I won't divorce. Tianyu's heart was filled with immense sadness. She almost couldn't hold it in. In the end, she had to pretend to be happy and said lightly, that's good. This way, no one will say it's because of me, divorce. I'm sorry for dragging you into this. Tianyu didn't want to hear it at all. Qin Jishui worked overtime every day and didn't come home. His colleagues couldn't stand it anymore. Your wife wants to divorce you, yet you still work overtime every day and don't come home. Are you afraid that you won't be able to get a divorce? Captain Wu told him to go home and accompany his wife, but Qin Jishui couldn't voice out his bitterness. There was nothing he could do even if he went back. He simply couldn't take his wife's mouth off. There was nothing he could do. He might as well wait for her anger to subside. Ning Shu ran to the police station to ask Qin Jishue for the divorce agreement. Qin Jishue had repeatedly said that he wouldn't divorce her, that he definitely wouldn't. Ning Shu looked deeply at Qin Jishue. Are you sure you don't want a divorce? I'm sure. Isn't it good for us to live peacefully? Qin Jishue asked. Ning Shu snorted and asked again, are you sure you don't want a divorce? You don't want a peaceful divorce. You don't want a divorce because you don't want to destroy the stability of your life, but I have to dump you, a man who always gives me a cold shoulder. I'm not getting a divorce. Ning Shu glanced at him, then picked up his bag and turned to leave. Qin Jishue's entire body was cold. He already knew that he couldn't be saved, but he didn't want to bear the crime of having an affair. Moreover, they still had to fight for the child's custody. Although he knew what was going on, Qin Jishue still wanted to drag it out, just in case there was a change. Ning Shu spent 5 merit points and located Wei Dong's location. Although Wei Dong was a thief and gangster, because he was involved with the main character, he could be considered a side character. Although he was cannon fodder, he still found him. Otherwise, with such a vast sea of people, even a GPS device wouldn't be able to locate him. Ning Shu found Wei Dong. Wei Dong was drinking at a food stall. He was drunk and vomited as he walked, his mouth still muttering about Tianyu. So ugly. If Wei Dong was an extremely handsome man, Tianyu wouldn't have rejected him so directly. The world that looked at looks was very hopeless. Ning Shu took advantage of the night and dragged Wei Dong to an alley, then hypnotized him. Was the confession successful? No, Wu, I don't understand. The hypnotized Wei Dong cried until he was about to wake up. Ning Shu, love pierces my heart. That's because she fell in love with someone else. She fell in love with someone else. She doesn't love you anymore. She fell in love with her colleague, and it's Qin Jishue who has a family, Ning Shu said in a low voice. It didn't matter if he could hypnotize him or not. Anyway, if he told Wei Dong these things, Wei Dong would definitely kick up a fuss. After telling Wei Dong these things, Ning Shu left. Following that, he handed over the documents to the court and waited for the court session to start. Since Qin Jishue felt that dragging it out would solve the problem, then let's drag it out. When the court summons arrives, it'll give him a surprise. Ning Shu didn't return to the rented apartment anymore. Every day, he brought Lulu to another apartment, one that was very close to the school. Now, Ning Shu brought Lulu along. Other than practicing the zither, the mother and daughter pair also went to learn taekwondo. Looking at Luli's appearance, she'd grow up to be a beauty too. Learning taekwondo was very necessary. Lulu was very happy to learn this with Ning Shu. Wearing her taekwondo uniform, she looked like a mother and son outfit with Ning Shu. Ning Shu never told Lulu about his parents' divorce. Recently, Ning Shu had been thinking about how to break the news to Lulu. If he told her when she was a little older, she'd definitely be angry. But if he didn't tell her, the paper couldn't hold fire. Ning Shu looked at the little Lulu. She was like a snow-white glutinous rice ball. He really couldn't bear to hurt her. However, Ning Shu still wanted to say, Lulu, stay with mommy in the future, okay? Okay, haven't Lulu always lived with mommy? Lulu said crisply. It's just mommy and Lulu. Luli's expression began to slowly become dignified. She let go of Ning Shu's hand. You and Daddy are going to divorce? Ning Shu was surprised. Who did you hear this from? Lulu said, there's also a classmate in my class whose parents divorced. Her parents didn't want her. In the end, she lived with her grandmother. Ning Shu squatted down and said, no one doesn't want Lulu. Mommy and Daddy are going to be separated, but they don't want to give you a fake home. Lulu, mommy will be with you, Using the child as a link, forcefully twisting the family together, saying that it was for the child. Was the child really happy? But using the child as an excuse. Lele burst into tears. Why? Aren't you doing fine? Lulu collapsed. She was still sympathizing with the classmate who divorced and lived with her grandmother. Now, it was her turn. She was so desperate, /BK. Chapter 2470. Ning Shu wiped away Lele's tears when he saw her crying like this. That's why having a child was especially difficult. If it was just Qin Ji Shui and Yuan Su, then a divorce would be a very clean and straightforward matter. That's why it wasn't wrong to say that a child was the link of a family. Because with a child, there were a lot of things that concerned the child. Lele, do you think it's fine? How much time have you seen your father? Lele, even if your father and mother separate, you'll always be your father's child. When you miss your father, you can go see him, Ning Shu said. No, you'll reorganize your family. You'll have a new husband, and your father will have a new wife. Lele wiped away her tears. Ning Shu really didn't know what to say. One had to be careful when having a child. Once Lele returned home, she locked herself in her room and didn't come out. Ning Shu also followed her and used his mental power to look through the wall to see what she was doing in the room. Lele cried non-stop under the blankets. Ning Shu took a deep breath, then another. Was he really not going to divorce? If he didn't divorce now, when would he? He should take advantage of his youth and work hard. He didn't have to look at the other party's face. Lele cried until she fell asleep. Ning Shu wet his handkerchief and walked into the room to wipe her face. Her face was flushed red. This child would definitely be a beauty in the future. He couldn't let her marry that man so cheaply. Especially a man like Qin Ji Shui. Some people said that a daughter would look for a partner based on her father's standards. Thinking of this, Ning Shu really wanted to divorce immediately and stay away from Qin Ji Shui. Perhaps in the eyes of outsiders, Qin Ji Shui didn't have any problems and could be used. Ning Shu only chuckled. Shoes looked good there, but whether they were comfortable or not, only the wearer would know. No matter what, he had to divorce anyway. Ning Shu had Lulu to worry about, but Tian Yu was in big trouble. Wei Dong was originally a person who made people mess with him, and he was not stingy. He actually ran to the police station and insisted on seeing Tian Yu. However, Tian Yu hid there and refused to come out. Wei Dong shouted at the door, Tian Yu, you betrayed me, you love someone else. You actually like a married man. Why are you looking for a married man and not willing to be with me? When Tian Yu heard this, she nearly fainted. She really regretted saving this scoundrel. If she had known this would happen, she would have let him die. Previously, he had thought that Lu Xian was not bad, but now, he just wanted him to die. Tian Yu's face was pale. Seeing that everyone was looking at her with disdain, she burst into tears. I didn't. Her heart was filled with admiration for Qin Ji Shui, but it was also a secret. Now that Wei Dong had pointed it out so bluntly, she couldn't take it anymore. He was so ashamed that he wanted to die. He hated Wei Dong to death. Wei Dong was still making a ruckus outside. Qin Ji Shui couldn't stand it anymore. If this continued, his job and reputation would be gone. You're the man Tian Yu fell in love with. You old man, don't you have any shame? You actually lied to a young lady. Wei Dong saw that Qin Ji Shui's eyes were red. No wonder this man wanted to hit him back then. Tian Yu was still on his side. Now, everything was clear. Sure enough, they had hooked up. Qin Ji Shui clenched his fists. Wei Dong looked at him and sneered, hit me then. I didn't do anything wrong. Do you dare to hit me? I'll call the police immediately. Qin Ji Shui was so angry his chest heaved up and down. He clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles turned white. More and more people gathered around. Wei Dong was getting more and more excited. He even told Tianyu to stop hiding inside and come out to clarify who Tianyu liked. Otherwise, this matter wouldn't end here. Qin Ji Shui really wanted to stuff this man's stinky mouth up. The recent events had made Qin Ji Shui very tired. His wife wanted to divorce him, and now there was this kind of hooligan causing trouble. If you keep talking nonsense, I'll sue you for slander. Qin Ji Shui threatened Wei Dong. Then sue me for slander. Let Tianyu come out to clarify. Wei Dong's heart was now filled with anger. He loved her so much, but she'd rather get together with a married man. The cinnabar mole that blinded his heart, Tianyu's unsullied goddess image in his heart, was crumbling. Tianyu didn't dare to go out at all. She locked herself in the autopsy room. She was harmed so badly by that man. Why didn't he just die? He was a thief. He should be arrested. Tianyu only wanted this Wei Dong to disappear now. A luxurious car stopped in front of the police station. The driver said to Tang Boda, "There's a lot of people around. Go see what's going on." Tang Boda said. Since he wanted her to be his wife, he definitely needed to spend some time. The driver got off the car and ran over to listen to the gossip and liveliness. Finally, he came back and turned to Tang Boda, not knowing what to say. "What's wrong?" Tang Boda asked. "This seems to be about Miss Tianyu." The driver told Tang Boda all the news he heard. Tang Boda's brows furrowed even tighter. "Is this confirmed?" "I can't be sure, but from what they said, I feel like it's most likely true." "Then are we still waiting for Miss Tian to get off work?" the driver asked. Tang Boda glanced at Qin Ji Shui and retracted his gaze. Women always like to play with these things. "Alright, let's go." He couldn't find this kind of wife. Tang Boda needed a wife with a clean background. As for whether she was rich or not, it didn't matter. In any case, she wasn't as rich as him. But his taste didn't seem too good. His previous wife was always talking about whether she loved or not. She couldn't stand the loneliness and found another man. She was deceived by that man's love until she was dizzy and disoriented. Tang Boda didn't say anything about this. Now, he found someone pleasing to the eye, but she got together with a married man. It didn't matter if it was true or not. There were traces of what happened. Finding a wife was nothing more than to establish a mature and stable image of an entrepreneur. Which man in his 30s didn't have a wife? Tang Boda was willing to establish such an image. The driver started the car, feeling a little regretful. He wanted to enjoy a rich life, but in the end, it was gone. Tang Boda was very generous, especially towards his own wife. That unlucky person who died, if it wasn't shopping, it was beauty treatments. She didn't have to do anything. Perhaps it was because of this that she felt even more lonely and needed emotions to comfort herself. A husband could give money, but it couldn't make up for the loneliness in her heart. Tianyu didn't know that her second male lead had left just like that. In the plot, Tianyu and Qin Ji Shui revealed their relationship after Yuan Su died. Tianyu also met Tang Boda. In the end, Tianyu chose Qin Ji Shui and Tang Boda even gave her a big gift. For a rich man like Tang Boda, the gift he gave was enough for Tianyu to live well. But now, it was all gone. Tianyu was now facing an unprecedented crisis in her reputation. Moreover, Tianyu was still in the internship period. Once the internship period ended, she still needed the signature and seal of the institution. /BK Chapter 2471. But now that something like this had happened, she might not be able to complete her internship smoothly. If news of this spread back to the school, it would be too embarrassing. Who knew if it would leave a mark on her record? Wei Dong was a bastard, a hooligan. To think she used to think that Wei Dong was different from other hooligans and thieves. At least he had some morals. Looking at it now, morals my ass. He was simply a bastard, a scum. Captain Wu facepalmed. Their department had never been so lively. There were people everywhere, and there were even people peeking out of the windows to watch the show. Qin Ji Shui was usually a quiet person, but when he made a scene, it was earth-shattering. In the end, Captain Wu arrested Wei Dong for obstructing official business, so as to prevent him from yelling nonsense outside. Captain Wu was simply annoyed. After dealing with Wei Dong's matter, he said to Tianyu, "Your internship has ended early. Don't worry, we won't say anything and will seal your internship report." Captain Wu couldn't bear to ruin a girl like this. Moreover, this girl was still so young. But if she continued to stay here, the station would become an 8 o'clock soap opera. Tianyu felt like she was struck by lightning. In the end, she cried and ran away. Captain Wu said to Qin Ji Shui, "You're also a muddle-headed person. She's just a little girl and hasn't seen much of the world. She just entered society. What about you? Where's your brain? No wonder your wife wants to divorce you." Qin Ji Shui didn't even have the strength to refute Captain Wu. He was exhausted. He had never been so tired before. Tianyu didn't even finish her internship and had to leave. When Tianyu came to pack her things, the two looked at each other speechlessly. Tianyu's tears fell. She packed her things and finally said to Qin Ji Shui, "Brother Qin, I'm leaving. I'm sorry." Qin Ji Shui felt that it was because of him that she was in such a difficult situation. Tianyu bit her lips and said, "Wei Dong was right about one thing. I do like you." Qin Ji Shui was stunned. He stared blankly at her hugging her things and leaving. When he finally reacted and chased after her, she had already left in her car. Qin Ji Shui felt like his heart was about to be torn into two. At this time, the court summons had already reached the station, informing Qin Ji Shui to appear in court on time. Qin Ji Shui was so angry that he directly threw the summons to the ground. What did Yuan Su mean by this? Why did she insist on sending the court summons to the police station? She wanted him to embarrass himself again. Qin Ji Shui could say sorry to Tianyu, but towards his wife, he was filled with resentment. When Qin Ji Shui returned home, he discovered that there was no trace of his wife and daughter in the rented apartment. He angrily called Ning Shu. Ning Shu only said that they had moved and that they would meet at the entrance of the court. Qin Ji Shui sneered. Divorce, divorce. Who can't live after divorce? Today, when Tianyu cried and told him that she liked him, Qin Ji Shui's heart was trembling. Since his wife insisted on a divorce, Tianyu would not have to bear the title of a mistress. Ning Shu handed the phone to Lei. "It's your father. Talk to him." Lei wasn't happy and ended the call. On the other side, Qin Ji Shui didn't know that the person on the phone had changed and was still saying, "Yuan Su, Lei is a child of the Qin family. What right do you have to take her away? Even if we're divorced, Lei still wants to live with me." Lei burst into tears. "Daddy, it's me. I'm Lei." Qin Ji Shui heard the child on the other end of the phone wailing and couldn't be coaxed. Qin Ji Shui let Lei pass the phone to Ning Shu, then shouted at Ning Shu, "Look at the damage you've caused to Lei." Ning Shu slammed the phone down. "Motherfucker, idiot." It was a waste of time to talk. Some people's logic could anger people to death. Out of sight, out of mind. Lei cried and begged Ning Shu not to divorce her. Ning Shu didn't say anything. He just patted her head and comforted her. Ning Shu collected all kinds of evidence for the court. Qin Ji Shui also found a lawyer to go against Ning Shu in court. When the court session started, Ning Shu was wearing an L suit, looking smart and capable. He smiled at Qin Ji Shui. Qin Jishue had lost a lot of weight recently. Probably because he was too busy, he didn't pay attention to his image. His shirt wasn't ironed and was a little wrinkled. He also lost weight. Ning Shu even greeted Qin Jishue politely. Qin Jishue looked at the spirited Ning Shu. Compared to his own struggles and pain recently, she seemed like a newborn. Qin Jishue could divorce. If the other party wasn't doing well, he wouldn't feel anything. But if the other party was doing well with him, he would feel uncomfortable. In court, Ning Shu took out the salary data of both parties and the nature of their jobs. Qin Jishue, who had to face unexpected situations at any time, couldn't take good care of the child. Whether it was in terms of finances or the time he spent with the child, the most important thing was that he had an affair. Although the photos taken secretly couldn't be used as evidence, it was enough to prove the truth. Qin Jishue was caught off guard by the fierce Ning Shu. When he saw the photos Ning Shu took out, he was so angry that his whole body trembled. He was angry that his wife actually took photos of him secretly. "I have nothing to do with her," Qin Jishue said. Qin Jishue said, "These photos can't prove anything. Then can you take out other evidence to prove my relationship with Tianyu?" Ning Shu said indifferently, "I took out these photos not to prove that you had an affair, but to prove your disregard for the child." Ning Shu took out the call recording. It was a call in which Ning Shu asked him to pick up the child and Qin Jishue said he was busy with work. "You had time to send your colleagues home and asked you to pick up the child, but you were unwilling. So, whether it's in terms of finances or time spent with the child, Qin Jishue has no right to raise the child. As for the matter between Qin Jishue and Tianyu, it's already spread like wildfire in the workplace. Just ask any of Qin Jishue's colleagues and you'll know." Qin Jishue's whole body turned cold. It was as if he'd never met his wife. She actually recorded a call with him. How scheming was she, ah! Qin Jishue only needed to think of the snake woman who was always scheming against him sleeping beside him and felt terrified. Moreover, she was someone who would do anything for money. Qin Jishue felt very hopeless. To let the child grow up with this kind of woman, what kind of torment would the child become? However, the people present, including the judge, didn't stand on his side. Even his lawyer was shaking his head. It was obvious that the other party came prepared. It wasn't easy to fight. Every single one of them was evidence. Their side really didn't have any advantage. Qin Jishue said with some despair, "I can't let the child grow up with such a vicious woman." Ning Shu looked like he'd suffered a blow. "Qin Jishue, you and I are husband and wife. In your heart, I'm that kind of person. I earn money to support the family and raise the child. I've never complained, yet you say I'm a vicious woman, /BK. Chapter 2472. Qin Jishue was actually a noble and pedantic man. Seeing how Ning Shu changed his face like a game, he almost vomited. Disgusting. Divorce was definitely a must, but the child's custody must be fought to the end. He asked the lawyer beside him, but the lawyer said it was basically impossible. Qin Jishue was so angry that his face was distorted. In the end, the judge decided that the house would be sold for half of the money. Qin Jishue also had to pay the child's maintenance fee. He had to pay a fixed amount every month until the child turned 18. The child's custody was Ning Shu's. Qin Jishue was very upset. Didn't anyone see clearly what kind of woman this was? After leaving the court, Ning Shu said to the angry Qin Jishue, "Let's have lunch together tomorrow. I'll bring Lei over. Lei wants to see you. You can see Lei if you want. You have visitation rights, but you have to inform me. I'll bring the child to see you," Ning Shu said directly. At this moment, this woman acted as if nothing had happened. She was so calm, without a hint of sadness or happiness. Her calmness made Qin Jishue's heart stifled. Was this person still the Yuan Su he remembered? Was she really not crazy? Are you going or not? Ning Shu asked. Yes. Ning Shu made an "oh" sound, opened the car door, and drove off. Qin Jishui, after the divorce, Qin Jishui's heart was very melancholy, but there was also a strange sense of relaxation. It was as if the burden on his body had been removed. He felt so relaxed that it was as if his soul was floating. However, Qin Jishui also felt that he was a traditional man. He should feel sad after the divorce, so he suppressed that elated feeling. Anyway, Qin Jishui and his wife's divorce still caused some discussion in the station. Some people felt that Qin Jishui might have some problems with his brain. They didn't know what was going on. Especially when Qin Jishui told Captain Wu to let Tianyu finish her internship, Captain Wu looked like he was struck by lightning. Didn't I already sign and stamp it? The evaluation is still okay. Pull her back and continue her internship. Captain Wu was flabbergasted. Captain Wu only thought that this young lady had just entered society and was easily attracted to mature men who were different from the ones in school. It was a mistake to change. But now, Qin Jishui still wanted her to come back. Captain Wu really didn't know what to say. We definitely have to make her complete her internship. If she doesn't complete it, she'll be implicated by this matter when she goes to another station in the future. What's more, this is a groundless matter to begin with. If she avoids it like this, she'll seem guilty. Qin Jishui said. Captain Wu looked at him strangely. You seem to care about her. I'm the one who brought her out. Captain Wu was suddenly choked. He turned around and left. He was too lazy to talk to this guy. No wonder Yuan Su wanted to divorce him. It was fine if nothing happened to this kind of man. Once something happened, one could see what kind of person he was. Right now, their department had become a joke. At this moment, Qin Jishui was still magnanimous and even wanted to transfer the interns back to continue their internship. Was there something wrong with him? He didn't think there was anything wrong with it. A rat's droppings spoil a pot of soup. Not long after, Qin Jishui's job transfer was announced. He was originally a police station in the city, but now he was being transferred to a police station in the suburbs. He was basically going to sit on the cold bench. For these small police stations, if something big happened, it would be the local police station that would come over to investigate. Other than that, he would have nothing to do. The impact of Qin Jishui's incident was too bad. The fact that he wasn't directly fired was already the result of Captain Wu's efforts. Qin Jishui even asked Captain Wu why he was being transferred. What could Captain Wu say? Look at the good things you've done. You've let others watch one big show after another. Sometimes, it's really helpless to have someone with low EQ by your side. If it was low EQ, then so be it. But he couldn't differentiate between good and bad. This made people feel a little helpless. Don't use low EQ as an excuse. You're just ignoring others and being selfish. That's how you treat your own wife. Qin Jishui had no choice but to pack up his things and sit on the cold bench. Before he left, he even went to see his child. Qin Jishui looked at Ning Shu, who was wearing a wool coat, walking over while holding the child's hand. He was a little absent-minded. Recently, the weather had started to turn cold. She wore a well-tailored coat and had an outstanding temperament. However, when he thought of her vicious heart, the tiny bit of regret in Qin Jishui's heart vanished like smoke. When Lei saw that Qin Jishui was starting to cry, he wiped his tears and hugged Qin Jishui's neck, crying non-stop. Ning Shu watched from the side, then found a restaurant to eat. Ning Shu had already heard from Qin Jishui's colleagues in the station that Qin Jishui's job had been transferred to a very small police station to be a forensic doctor. In this lifetime, he could no longer develop into an authoritative figure. Those forensic doctors at the top of the pyramid of authority, regardless of reputation or salary, were extremely attractive. Ning Shu and Qin Jishui didn't seem to realize their fates. She was too lazy to say anything. In any case, the two of them had nothing to do with each other anymore. They were strangers. Qin Jishui asked Lei about his studies. Lei said that he was very sad recently. When he was learning the piano, his teacher told him that he pulled his leg while practicing taekwondo. Qin Jishui frowned. Why did you let the child learn this? It's all about falling and hitting. Ning Shu, I have so much money that I don't know where to spend it. Qin Jishui gave up on communicating with her and continued talking to Lei. When Qin Jishui arrived at the cold yamen, he had nothing to do every day. He practically lived the life of a middle-aged man who drank goji berries and chrysanthemum from a thermos. It wasn't like when he was busy to death every day in the city. Qin Jishui wasn't used to this kind of life. Then, one day, Tianyu suddenly appeared in front of him. Brother Qin, I'm here to find you. Qin Jishui was very absent-minded. He somewhat understood but didn't dare to think about it. Qin Jishui and Tianyu were about to get married. Ning Shu even received an invitation from Tianyu. Ning Shu looked at the invitation and couldn't help but laugh. In the end, they were still together. She even specially sent a wedding invitation. Thinking about it, it hadn't even been 3 months since her divorce with Qin Jishui. Go, why wouldn't he go? He suddenly wanted to see the scene of these two getting married. The person who sent him the invitation didn't even have the chance to see it. It could be considered as fulfilling a wish. Getting married like this, and in such a short period of time, no one would believe that there was nothing between these two before. Who would be in such a rush to throw a bucket of shit on their own head? Ning Shu suddenly felt like he was fighting with a retard. She even used 120% of her energy to deal with it. But it was good that the matter was resolved. Was Tianyu showing off by sending an invitation? Did she successfully steal someone else's man? Qin Jishui's former colleagues all received an invitation. Captain Wu slapped his forehead and wiped his face. In this kind of situation, he shouldn't go. Damn, she said before that there was nothing between the two of them, but now they're directly married, /BK. Chapter 2473. On the day of the wedding, Ning Shu brought Lei to attend the ceremony. When Lei found out that her father was about to form a new family with another auntie, it was as if she was struck by lightning. She burst into tears. Is mommy going to get married soon too? No, mommy wants to be with Lei. Ning Shu held her hand. Those who attended the wedding were still people from the police station. They came with gifts. Some people attended while some didn't. In any case, the atmosphere was filled with awkwardness. Especially when Ning Shu's ex-wife appeared with her daughter. The atmosphere instantly exploded with awkwardness. Ning Shu handed the gift money to the bride. Here, take it. It's to buy milk powder for the child. Thus, everyone's gaze fell on Tianyu's stomach. Although her stomach was flat in the wedding dress, everyone still felt that she was pregnant. Otherwise, why would she be in such a hurry to get married? Tianyu's expression instantly turned ugly. Ning Shu leaned in and said, if you like it, you can pick it up. I don't even want it, so why are you showing off your happiness in front of me? In the future, whatever baby's 1-month-old banquet or something, don't invite me. You're making it sound like we're relatives. Ning Shu then looked at Qin Jishui. Qin Jishui was very nervous because he didn't know what kind of words would come out of this firecracker's mouth that would make his blood vessels explode. Ning Shu only said, congratulations on finding the perfect wife in your heart. She's not mean, she doesn't love money, she's indifferent to fame and fortune. She's not domineering and loves work. From her, you'll feel the warmth of a family. You'll definitely be happy. Congratulations. Qin Jishui thanked him. Ning Shu curled his lips and led Lei away. Lei still turned back to look at Qin Jishui. Once they left the wedding venue, her tears couldn't stop. "Mommy, I feel like Daddy belongs to someone else." "No, he'll always be your daddy. This will never change." Ning Shu wiped her tears. Ning Shu still wanted to say something, but he saw Wei Dong arrive on a very loud broken motorcycle. Once he reached the entrance, he anxiously got off the motorcycle and rushed into the wedding venue. Ning Shu wanted to go and watch the fun, but the children were here, so he held back. He used his spiritual power to envelop the wedding venue. When he saw Wei Dong go in, he picked up a chair and smashed it. The scene was chaotic. Tian Yu was so scared that her face turned pale. She couldn't help but scream. Qin Jishui hurriedly hugged her to prevent her from being hurt by the chaos. Fortunately, there were many people from the police station who came to attend the wedding. They stopped Wei Dong immediately. Wei Dong, who was pressed to the ground, kept shouting, "You can't marry him, you can't." Wei Dong was really sad as he watched Tian Yu marry someone else in a wedding dress. Wei Dong was dragged out. Although the commotion had subsided, the scene was still a mess. The wedding ceremony had ended with a strong start and a weak finish. In short, it was not very pleasant. Ning Shu watched as Wei Dong was dragged away. Was this man the one who killed the client? She remembered that this man wanted to push her into the water and drown her. He couldn't let it go. If it was the client, he might have been pushed down and drowned if he wasn't careful. Therefore, this man was very likely to be the person who killed the client. I can't let him off so easily. Moreover, leaving him alive was always a disaster. Moreover, he was a petty thief. Who knows when he would come back to cause trouble. However, the most important thing now was Lulu. Her father getting married so quickly was a huge blow to Lulu. It hadn't been long. They were a loving family before, but now her father was married to someone else. Moreover, it was a girl she used to work with. It was hard to accept. Moreover, Lulu was more afraid of when her mother would marry another man. Lulu didn't feel safe at all. She felt terrible and helpless. Ning Shu hugged Lulu to sleep at night, giving her a sense of security. Usually, when he played the piano with her, Ning Shu felt that he had quite a lot of skills. It was just that he didn't know how to play the piano. He told Lulu that he planned to buy a piano with Lulu and learn from her at home. Lulu was very happy that she could own a piano, but she also knew that it was very expensive. Ning Shu said that she would work hard to earn money. Moreover, she still had the money from selling the house. The joy of getting a piano temporarily diluted Luli's sadness. When she returned home one day, she saw a piano in the living room near the balcony. A gentle breeze blew against the floor-to-ceiling windows, and the soft curtains fluttered. It was poetic and picturesque. Lulu hugged Ning Shu and kissed him fiercely. Because he had to raise a child, Ning Shu used to have a little more cases, but he could still handle them. On the contrary, before the divorce, he was like a fish in water. In the past, he had to worry about two people, his husband and his daughter. Now, he only needed to work wholeheartedly and take care of his daughter. He was much more relaxed. When he had nothing to do, he played the piano with Lulu. Ning Shu felt that his hands might have killed too many people. He really couldn't adapt to such an elegant thing like the piano. Although he played the piano with Lulu, his fingers didn't stop directing at all. She could only play a piece of music intermittently, and it was not as smooth as an 8-year-old girl's. Lulu couldn't help but complain about Ning Shu. "Mom, you're so stupid." "Ning Shu. What can I do? I'm in despair. Elegance doesn't have anything to do with her." "But, Mom, I'll teach you." Lulu took on everything. Ning Shu tapped her nose. Not long after Qin Jishui and Tian Yu got married, they found out that she was pregnant. Ning Shu didn't tell Lulu about this. If Lulu knew, she'd probably have a weathered expression again. She probably never dreamed that her own father would be able to withdraw from her life so quickly. He got married and had other wives. His wife got pregnant and he became someone else's father. Qin Jishue was very happy that Tianyu was pregnant. Tianyu married Qin Jishue after graduating from university. They were sweet and didn't experience complicated society. The biggest thing was Wei Dong's pestering. Everyone in the station knew about it and it was very embarrassing. But now that she and Qin Jishue had a happy ending, there was no such thing as a mistress anymore. Moreover, they got together after the divorce. Anyway, many people in the station scoffed at their relationship. How thick-skinned were they? Many people didn't want to interact with this couple. They lived in their own world and didn't care about what others thought of them. In short, Qin Jishue felt that he was very blessed, especially now that his little wife was pregnant. Right now, the whole family was still living in a rented apartment, so they had to buy a house. But after getting married, they didn't have much money left after paying for all kinds of living expenses, utilities, food, drinks, and toilet expenses. When he went to look at real estate with his wife, he discovered that the house prices were really fucking expensive. Moreover, the money they had wasn't enough to buy a big house. /BK Chapter 2474 Tianyu, on the other hand, was a girl who still had romantic feelings in her heart. Plus, she had just graduated not long ago. When buying a house, she wanted to buy a big one. Even if it wasn't big, she hoped it would be as big as the one Qin Jishue and his ex-wife had. That way, the child would have enough space to move around. If Tianyu got together with Tang Boda and married him, she would have enough money for the little romance she needed. When two romantic people were together, reality was always cold. Tianyu wanted to buy a big house, but Qin Jishue was shy and didn't have that much money. But Tianyu acted coquettishly because she saw a big house with a balcony. But the price made Qin Jishue vomit. It was too expensive. He could only afford a down payment and needed a loan from the bank for the rest. Tianyu said it didn't matter. She could live in the house first and repay the loan slowly. She could live in a good house with a little money every month, so why not? Qin Jishue still felt that it wasn't appropriate and said it tactfully. In the past, Qin Jishue never needed to worry about money, but now he had to. He had to arrange the money at home reasonably to ensure that he could support his wife and the child in her stomach. Because of this, Tianyu was angry for a few days and even questioned why she could live in such a big house with Yuan Su in the past. Qin Jishue was biased towards Tianyu and thought about how much she had done for him, so he gave her a down payment and became a mortgage lender. Qin Jishue was the only one working at home. He was only a forensic doctor now and his salary wasn't much. With such a big house, the monthly loan to the bank was 3/4 of his salary. With a house to renovate, Tianyu was like a carefree little wife, choosing the furniture, curtains, and even the color and patterns of the bricks for the new house. Of course, only Qin Jishue could understand the bitterness of this. Of course, he could only watch as Tianyu chose the best things. Since he already owed so much money, he didn't have to worry about it anymore and let her buy it. During this time, Tianyu was harassed by Wei Dong again, making her hide at home and not dare to come out. Especially since she was pregnant recently. Wei Dong wasn't willing to let his goddess get married just like that. She would rather marry an old man than be with him. What's so good about that man? Tianyu had no choice but to call the police. She really wanted to kill Wei Dong. She shouldn't have saved him at that time. Such a rotten person should have died on the road. Why was there something wrong with his brain at that time? In the plot, Wei Dong wished Tianyu well and said that she could look for him if she needed help in the future. He would try his best to help. But now, Wei Dong subconsciously felt that Tianyu had cheated on him and had fallen in love with someone else. She was very unwilling to accept it. She did not want to give her blessings. Although Tian Yu called the police, Wei Dong was only detained for a while because he didn't cause any harm and was only tailing them. But later on, he was locked up again for petty theft. In short, he was locked up again and again. Of course, this was something Qin Ji Shui had asked Captain Wu to do. At first, Captain Wu didn't want to pay attention to it. Their major crimes department had a lot of things to do every day, but since this person had begged him, he decided to help this one time. Because of Captain Wu, Wei Dong was now the focus of the patrol police. Every time Wei Dong wanted to do something or steal a wallet, he would be caught. He was a repeat offender again and again, facing jail time. Ning Shu actually wanted to do something to Wei Dong, but in the end, he was sent to reform through labor. Adding to the fact that there were people involved, Wei Dong actually had to be locked up for a few more years. She also paid attention to her ex-husband's situation and found out that he bought such a big house. She couldn't help but want to laugh. Qin Ji Shui would probably have to pay the mortgage even when he retired. Did a family of 3 need to buy such a big house? 120 square meters and leave the other rooms empty? She was simply drunk. Qin Ji Shui's salary wasn't high and he was even sent to the cold yamen. His chances of being promoted in this lifetime were close to zero. Qin Ji Shui was simply destroying his own future. He had clearly caused such a huge ruckus before. Although he didn't lose his job, there was no room for promotion in this lifetime. Especially after the divorce, he married the woman he had an affair with not long after. No matter how others looked at it, they would definitely believe that the reason for the divorce was because you had an affair and immediately got married after the divorce. Qin Ji Shui really didn't care about his own face at all. He said he didn't care, but in front of Yuan Su, he loved his face to the death. He didn't force himself to keep it up, but made Yuan Su give up her job to maintain his face. Ning Shu wanted to see how romantic these two would be together. Moreover, when Tian Yu left school, she only interned for a short period of time and didn't experience many things. If she couldn't achieve the happy life she imagined in her heart, then, at this time, she would start to doubt whether her efforts were worth it. Once a person was calculative about gains and losses, their heart would become more and more resentful, feeling that they had sacrificed so much yet couldn't get what they wanted. Poor couples had 100 sorrows. Qin Ji Shui, who felt that money was tacky, became stressed because of this tacky thing. Without a house left behind by a client, without a huge amount of insurance, these two people wouldn't have such a romantic life that didn't need to worry about money. Qin Ji Shui also had to change from a little celestial boy to an ordinary man who didn't know what to do in order to support his family. What should Qin Ji Shui do when he met a girl who wanted him to be romantic? He didn't want to quarrel, so he could only satisfy the romance she wanted. However, even if he wanted to satisfy her, he didn't have enough strength. After Ning Shu got divorced, the client's mother was probably afraid that her daughter would take things too hard, so she came over to accompany her. Their relationship started in university, and after so many years of marriage, they suddenly got divorced. Mother Yuan nagged Ning Shu every day, saying why he got divorced so quickly, why did he have to get divorced, and why did he have to become a single parent. Then, when she saw that Qin Ji Shui got married very quickly, she immediately turned around and scolded him for being a bastard. She even said that the bastard saw that the girl was young and pretty, so he would always be at a disadvantage. The girl didn't know anything, so he could deceive her for a while, but not forever. There were some girls that Qin Ji Shui couldn't afford to raise. When Ning Shu heard these words, he only smiled. People who were carefree and happy didn't need to worry about their lives, living freely and comfortably. However, once the situation went wrong, that would be called suffering. After that, Mother Yuan started to arrange blind dates for Ning Shu. At the dining table, in front of the child, she was so careless, causing Leilei's face to turn paler and paler. In the end, Leilei pushed her bowl away and locked herself in her room. /BK. Chapter 2475. Ning Shu looked at Mrs. Yuan. Mrs. Yuan was a middle-aged woman who was a little chubby. She talked a lot about her daughter and her granddaughter. Ning Shu said, "Mom, I'm fine. You don't have to arrange any blind dates for me. I finally got divorced, but you want me to get married again. Are you going to take care of this child for the rest of your life? A woman needs someone to rely on." Mrs. Yuan chattered. Ning Shu turned around and saw Lulu looking at them through the gap of the door. Lulu closed the door. Ning Shu said indifferently, "Is the world going to be destroyed without a husband?" Many families were widows. Women had to do everything. Having a husband or not was just a title. Who made my mother strong and great? Of course, it was your incompetent father. A woman needs someone to rely on. Don't talk like that. I have to take my child to other people's houses to suffer. I have to take care of a man and his parents. I have to fulfill my duties as a husband and wife. I have to work and take care of my man. You're my mother. You think that my life is too easy, so you want to give me more work so that I can live a more fulfilling life, right? Ning Shu put down his chopsticks. Mom, I'm fine. When are you going back? Mrs. Yuan said, "What are you talking about? Where did you get your twisted logic from? Okay, I'm living a good life with my child. Don't always ask me to go on blind dates. You don't care about your daughter's feelings, but I have to care about mine. Okay, I'll treat your kindness as malice. I'm just anxious. You're married again and you have a child." Mrs. Yuan was still talking. Ning Shu just looked at her indifferently. Mrs. Yuan was speechless. The next day, Ning Shu asked Mrs. Yuan to pack up. She didn't need to take care of them. She wasn't here to take care of people, but to poke at their hearts. Mrs. Yuan had no choice. Ning Shu warned her not to always ask her to go on blind dates. She was busy with work. Every day, she had to learn piano and taekwondo with her daughter. If she had to find a man to disturb her, she wouldn't be polite to anyone, including her own mother. If he followed blindly, what awaited him would be endless trouble. Mrs. Yuan left angrily. Lei asked Ning Shu carefully if he was going to get married. Ning Shu said no. Even if they wanted to get married, if Lulu didn't agree, they wouldn't get married. Lei's mood improved a little. Now, her father didn't even call her, so she had to call him. As they spoke, her father hung up the phone. A child's senses were sharp. Lei felt that her father wasn't close to her anymore. Qin Ji Shui was probably also a wooden club. He told Lei, "You're going to be an older sister. When the time comes, you'll have a younger brother or sister." Lei, she wanted to smash the phone. Who would want to hear such words? Lei burst into tears. She hugged Ning Shu and cried. Ning Shu was speechless. "You're going to be a father. Do you want your daughter to celebrate with you?" After Tian Yu got pregnant, what she had to do every day was to post her selfies. Many people in the police station blocked her because they didn't want to see them at all. But Tian Yu didn't feel anything. She continued to post her happiness in all sorts of ways. Her circle of friends was filled with dog food, especially those who knew the situation between these two. Everyone in the police station knew what was going on between these two. So when they saw this dog food, the feeling was really disgusting. There was no disgusting feeling. She caused someone to get a divorce, yet she could still show off her happiness. If she wasn't stupid, then she was thick-skinned. It was so annoying that she directly blocked this person's circle of friends. Qin Ji Shui wasn't as stupid as Tian Yu. Because this was a small place, there weren't any major cases. Sometimes, Qin Ji Shui wouldn't even do an autopsy once a month. Even if something happened, there would be a forensic doctor to examine it. The corpse also had to be moved away, so there was nothing for him to do. Qin Jishui had nothing to do every day, but his daily expenses were not small. He had to pay for the birth of his child and support his wife and children. As for the future, his child wouldn't be like his eldest daughter, practicing piano and learning other things. Qin Jishui couldn't even earn that much money in a month for the piano fees. There was also the mortgage. Every day, he listened to Tianyu talk about how outstanding their future child would be. She wanted him to learn many things and become an outstanding person. As Qin Jishui listened, his heart was filled with fear and despair. He couldn't do it, he was powerless. Where was he going to get so much money to raise an outstanding son? Why was it a son? Because Tianyu was very certain that the child in her stomach was a boy. At this time, Qin Jishui couldn't even refute because it would only attract Tianyu's blank gaze. Why couldn't he do it? Why couldn't he? Didn't your daughter practice piano every day too? As a man, he was actually so troubled by money. Tianyu wasn't someone who loved money, but she was a girl who didn't have any concept of money. Her family's situation was still okay. It seemed like she hadn't suffered much since she was young. After marrying Qin Jishui, she naturally felt that this was just the basics. Her child was the best. Of course, he had to be raised better. At least, he couldn't be worse than his half-sister. Qin Jishui felt very helpless. This kind of guilt and helplessness made Qin Jishui unable to raise his spirits when facing Tianyu. Qin Jishui was so worried that his hair was about to fall out. The psychological pressure was huge. In the past, when he was with his ex-wife, he never worried about money. He paid a fixed amount of his salary every month, then he didn't need to worry about anything at home. Qin Jishui vaguely felt that his past self was like the current Tianyu. Because Tianyu was pregnant, she was very delicate. She would want to eat this one moment, then eat that the next moment, she would buy it at a high price, but she didn't want to eat it because she thought it was too oily. Qin Jishui ate silently. In this way, the pregnant Tianyu didn't gain weight, but Qin Jishui did. Qin Jishui now needed to worry about money. He felt that it was a pity to throw away the food he couldn't finish. If he couldn't finish one meal, he would eat two. No matter if it was a man or a woman, it was easy to gain weight if one didn't pay attention at the beginning of the year. Qin Jishui had a leisurely job, so he read the newspaper and drank chrysanthemum wolfberry tea every day. Because Tianyu was picky, she didn't eat this or that. In the end, Qin Jishui ate it. When Ning Shu saw Qin Jishui again, he noticed that Qin Jishui's face seemed to be swollen like a steamed bun. Once a person gained weight, it was easy to get oily. In any case, Qin Jishui looked a lot more oily before his divorce. This time, Qin Jishui wanted to visit Lulu. Ning Shu brought Lulu outside to meet him. He wouldn't let Qin Jishui take a single step into their house. In the future, if he had nothing better to do, who would he disgust? /BK Chapter 2476 Ning Shu guessed that the little beggar would have a fortuitous encounter in the future. Otherwise, with his aptitude, Ning Shu felt that it would be quite difficult for him to take revenge. She couldn't be some old grandpa, right? Did she give this child a golden finger? Ning Shu was thunderstruck by his inner thoughts. If he let this child cultivate, it wouldn't be bad if he could make the water even more muddy. Ning Shu stared at the child and coughed. "Child, come here." Ning Shu pretended to be unfathomable, but the little beggar glanced at him and closed his eyes again to cultivate. "All right, up to you." This child was about 8 years old and was very thin. It was probably because his family had undergone a great change that he was more mature and cynical than other children his age. Ning Shu felt very uncomfortable staying in this small shed. He always felt that if he stood up, he would poke through the roof. He unexpectedly felt that he was very tall. The earthworm lay on Ning Shu's shoulder as if it was dead, not moving at all. Ning Shu said to it, "Let's go back. It's so early, I don't want to go back. I feel very uncomfortable in that world, very uncomfortable." The earthworm immediately shook its head, its face full of fear. "Ning Shu, useless, you will starve to death here. There are no soul stone mines here," Ning Shu said indifferently. "It's okay, I think that little brat is okay. I will stay here. Although it stinks, it is better than down there. Leave some soul stones for me," the earthworm said. Ning Shu, heh, you want to take the soul stones from her pocket? Dream on. Without soul stones, you can eat dirt, Ning Shu said directly. I helped you find so many soul stone mines and didn't ask you to give me the golden soul fluid. You are actually so stingy with 2 soul stones. Two-legged monsters are really greedy and selfish. The earthworm bounced on Ning Shu's shoulder. It was very heavy. Ning Shu directly threw it to the ground. The little beggar opened his eyes and stared blankly at the jumping earthworm. Is this your pet? Why was it so ugly? The little beggar had seen powerful people whose pets were especially domineering. Ning Shu looked at the beggar. Why did the task of saving the world fall on a man? What Spider-Man? What Superman? Could it be that the heavenly Tao was afraid that girls would talk about revenge and then fall in love? World peace. It's not my pet. I don't keep such a disgusting thing. Ning Shu refused. Who are you calling disgusting? Since the 2 of us are sick of it, leave the soul stones behind and leave. Don't come back after you leave. Ning Shu was speechless. She hadn't been with Liren for long, but she had learned all of Liren's pretentious ways. The little beggar looked at the insect and the man confronting each other silently. In fact, the 2 of them were already quarreling with each other. I say, why are you so stingy? I've helped you find so many soul stone mines. Why don't you leave me some food and then leave? Are you going to stay here and not go back? Ning Shu asked. I'm not going back. Maybe after a long time, I won't eat soul stones anymore. I'll eat spirit stones, he. The earthworm was dreaming. Ning Shu threw out 2 soul stones with a lot of impurities. The earthworm jumped up and down. Were these things for it to eat? However, the earthworm still ate them. In the end, it spat out a lot of impurities as if it was eating sugarcane. The little beggar stared at the little insect in surprise and then looked at Ning Shu. His eyes turned. As his eyes moved, the whites of his eyes seemed especially lively under the contrast of the pitch-black alchemy. Ning Shu looked at the little beggar calmly. He had to maintain his attitude. Good things had to be asked for by himself. If he forced it into the little beggar's hands, he might even dislike it. Senior, which family are you from? I've offended you before, please forgive me. The little beggar knelt on the ground and bowed to Ning Shu. Ning Shu maintained his noble and elegant demeanor. He didn't say anything. Do you know what the consequences would be if the words you said before were heard by others? I just. The little beggar raised his head and looked at Ning Shu with a bit of stubbornness. Could it be that I'm not telling the truth? Senior can hand me over to General Wei. The little beggar's whole body was trembling. He was betting that this woman wouldn't hand him over. She was being chased by General Wei before. Ning Shu looked at the trembling little beggar and asked, "What is your name?" "My name is Yilin." The little beggar said. Ning Shu made an "oh" sound and didn't say anything else. There was a suffocating silence in the hut. In any case, you saved me. This is your reward. Ning Shu took out a copy of a peerless martial art. Your constitution isn't good enough. You can't cultivate that kind of immortal cultivation technique. She really came to give San Wen. Thank you, senior. Yi Lin was very happy on the surface, but he was still very vigilant in his heart. What if it was a fake secret technique? Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and looked at him and asked, if you become very powerful in the future, what do you plan to do? Protect myself and take revenge for my family. Yi Lin lowered his head and said. Since it's like this, you should take me as your master. He couldn't give him things for free. Yi Lin clenched his teeth and finally kowtowed 3 times on the ground. Master, please accept this disciple's kowtow. Both of them had their own thoughts. It was just a simple ceremony of taking a master. Ning Shu gave him the book and Yi Lin respectfully received it with both hands. Ning Shu said, you can cultivate. I'll watch you from the side. Is this what master cultivates as well? Asked Yi Lin. Ning Shu shook his head, the soul can't be cultivated. Because there was no dantian. Don't worry, I won't take over your body. I don't want to be a man. Ning Shu said with a smile. It would have been better if she didn't say it. Once she said it, Yi Lin felt his whole body go numb. There were too many cases of people taking over bodies in the cultivation world, especially people who like to take over bodies with good root bones. Ning Shu, your aptitude isn't very good. Even if I want to take over your body, I won't take over yours. Yi Lin sighed. No matter what, he had to try because his root bone really wasn't good. Now that there was a chance to make himself stronger, he had to try. The little beggar's body was very dirty. Only the white of his eyes could be seen on his face. The other parts were negligible. His hair was messy and there was a thick layer of dust on his head. There was a smell on his body. Ning Shu didn't say anything. It was good to protect himself in this way. If he walked on the street fair and tender, he would be caught by some people with special hobbies. At the very least, he would be sold as a slave or killed to take his soul. Anyway, it was useful whether he was dead or alive. The little beggar opened the book and sat cross-legged on the ground. He looked at the book and said after a while, what language is this? Ning Shu, you don't even know how to read. Will you have a share of good things in the future? Ning Shu said calmly. Although I don't know many words, I don't know any of these words. Yi Lin frowned and said. It was indeed not the language here. Chapter 2477. Ning Shu asked, you can read even though you're from the slums? Yi Lin said. My father knows some. How old are you? Ning Shu asked. 12. Yi Lin didn't understand why the topic was about age. 12 years old. He was only 8 or 9 years old. Poor nutrition affected growth. She basically had no chance to grow taller in her life. She was already fixed. You don't have anything to eat, right? I'll bring you some next time, Ning Shu said. Lin Yi lowered his head and said lightly, thank you. For a beggar like him, it was a good thing to have charity. Since he couldn't read, Ning Shu could only tell him so that he could cultivate. The spiritual energy in this world was still very abundant. As long as there was spiritual energy, peerless martial arts would be very powerful. Even if there was no spiritual energy, there was still the power of the fire sun to absorb. Without the power of the fire sun, he could find lightning to strike him. It would be great if he could absorb it, but if he couldn't, he would be unlucky. Ning Shu cast a spell and set up a spirit gathering array. The spiritual energy in the surroundings gathered over. Yi Lin began to absorb the spiritual energy according to the method Ning Shu taught him. The spiritual energy entered his body and gathered in his dantian. Although it wasn't much, Yi Lin was very excited because he had never felt so much spiritual energy before. He had a carefree feeling that made him want to look up to the sky and roar. When he cultivated by himself in the past, that kind of difficult feeling was like pushing a mountain. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get up. For the first time, he felt that cultivation was so interesting. It wasn't so difficult or painful, only a carefree feeling. Yi Lin opened his eyes and knelt on the ground. Ning Shu kowtowed. This time, he kowtowed more sincerely than before. Thank you, Master. I can't thank you enough. Okay, get up. Cultivate by yourself. Even if you have the ability, don't bully those who don't have the strength to truss a chicken. If you want to fight, fight with cultivators on the same level. Disciple will remember. Thank you, Master. Yi Lin stood up. Ning Shu glanced at the earthworm that was gnawing on the soul stone. Help me look after this worm. I won't take it away. Okay, Yi Lin said without thinking. He was just bringing a bug with him. Earthworm, follow it. If there's anything you need to do, you can do it yourself. By the way, other than the soul stone mine where you were temporarily staying, do you know of any other soul stone mines? Ning Shu asked. No, the earthworm said decisively. You want to eat dirt? Alright, there are 2 places. Give me some more soul stones and I'll be full in one go. I can last for a while, the earthworm said. Ning Shu took out the soul stone and tossed it up and down in his hand. The earthworm looked at the soul stone and its eyes followed it up and down. It was truly heartbreaking. How did it become so depraved? It actually ate such an impure soul stone, and it even enjoyed it so much. What if there were no more soul stones in the future? It seemed that it really had to change its diet in the future. Otherwise, it would be threatened by this treacherous 2-legged monster in the future. Was it going to change to eating spirit stones? Was she going to force it to find a spirit stone mine again? According to the greedy 2-legged monster, it was very possible. What do you mean? The earthworm looked at the soul stone in Ning Shu's hand. Didn't I already tell you that there are 2 soul stone mines? Ning Shu, I'll just play with it in my hand. Then he threw the soul stone to the earthworm. Ning Shu was not worried about the earthworm. After all, the earthworm's poison could pollute the soul. The premise was that it was not killed before it bit people. Ning Shu said to the dirty Yi Lin, I'm leaving. Ning Shu opened the black hole and walked in, disappearing into the house that was about to collapse. Such a sudden disappearance made Yi Lin's face gloomy. After all this time, this person had been playing with him. She clearly had the ability to escape, but why was she chased by the guard generals all the way? He felt very stupid for being a busybody and dragging her over. Yi Lin turned his eyes and then stared at the earthworm gnawing the black stone. What was the origin of this person? Could it be that she was a powerful young lady from a big family who had absorbed the soul fluid and ran out because she thought it was fun? Those guard generals were there to capture her, not to turn her into soul fluid. In short, Yi Lin imagined all kinds of things in his mind. At first glance, he knew that she was not a frightened and humble soul. Feeling the abundant strength in his body, Yi Lin pursed his lips. No matter what, he had power. As long as he had power, he could do what he wanted and avenge his family. Yi Lin's heart was full of vigilance against this cheap master. He also wondered if the secret book she gave him would be harmful. Yi Lin, who was rolling in the underworld, had seen all kinds of people and things. There were all kinds of schemes between master and disciple. The master passed on a tampered secret book, and the disciple served the master like a servant. He cursed the master in his heart. There was too much intrigue. The father was not the father, the son was not the son, the master was not the master, and the disciple was not the disciple. Yi Lin did not believe in this master. In the past, it was very difficult for him to cultivate, but now it was not so troublesome. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the sky. Especially secret books that could help one cultivate quickly. This kind of secret book usually needed to consume other potential and vitality, because in order to gain strength, it was necessary to sacrifice other things. He heard these things from the old beggar in the beggar group. It was said that this beggar was a master when he was young. It was because he practiced an unknown secret book that he became a cripple without any strength. The old beggar said that he would not have any great achievements in his life because his root bone was not good. He did not know if the secret book this cheap master passed on to him required him to burn his life, his soul, or something else. Ning Shu had returned and reappeared in the dilapidated straw hut. This gave Yalin, who was guessing all sorts of possibilities, a fright. He jumped up and asked Ning Shu somewhat stutteringly, "Why are you back again?" Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and looked at him. Yilin looked so uncomfortable, who knew what he was thinking. Ning Shu took out a bottle and said, "This is a fasting pill. If you are hungry, eat one." Although this was a world of cultivation, there were more mortals. There were very few people who could embark on the path of cultivation, and even fewer people with good root bones. However, in such a big and endless city with so many people gathered, there were probably many people who could cultivate. "Thank you, Master." When Yilin took the pill, his hands were shaking. It could not be some kind of poisonous tooth, right? Ning Shu stared at Yilin's tangled face. The fasting pill that he was going to put in Yilin's hand was put away. Yilin, who was holding the pill with both hands, looked at Ning Shu in shock. Ning Shu said indifferently, "If you don't want to eat it, just say it. I don't want to spoil my own things." This was something she had specially bought from the exchange store. It was like looking at a poisonous pill, hee. Chapter 2478. Although Ning Shu understood the little beggar's vigilance, it didn't mean that she had to please the little beggar. Calling him master didn't mean that they had a close relationship. "Master, you think too much. I don't have such an idea." Yilin lowered his head and said. Ning Shu nodded and glanced at Yilin. "Well, that's it. As for the secret books, I can't take anything from you. You can practice without worry. Even if you have to sacrifice something, it's an equivalent exchange with your current qualifications, isn't it? Eating too much would hurt you." Yilin lowered his head and said, "Master, I never thought so. It's good to be vigilant. That's it. I'm leaving." Ning Shu planned to open the black hole and leave. He entered the world on the first level and dug the 2 mines mentioned by the earthworm. He seriously suspected that the earthworm was hiding something. But it didn't matter. He would make the earthworm tell him everything sooner or later. When Yilin saw that his cheap master was going to disappear suddenly like this, he couldn't help wiping the cold sweat on his head. His master came and went without a trace. Had he been hiding in the dark and secretly observing him? When Yilin thought of this, he felt cold all over. Ning Shu went to the first level and found the place mentioned by the earthworm. Then he took out the tools and began to dig. Ning Shu felt that he should turn over every place on the first level to know if there was a soul stone mine left behind. Very few people would be able to find these soul stone mines buried deep underground. Even if there were earthworm-like soul worms, in the world of samsara, they would only become souls without a body. It was impossible to find a soul stone mine. Maybe this earthworm was the only earthworm. Ning Shu went back to the second level and looked at the earthworm kindly. The earthworm was disgusted by Ning Shu's eyes and spat out the dregs in its mouth. "Don't stare at me with your lustful eyes. You're thinking about my body again." Ning Shu chuckled. "Don't worry, I'll treat you well in the future." Ning Shu left the straw hut. Yilin approached the earthworm that was chewing on the stone. He poked the earthworm with a stick and asked, "Who is she?" The earthworm bared its sharp fangs and glared fiercely at Yilin, scaring Yilin so much that he fell to the ground. The earthworm snorted and began to chew on the stone again. These 2 mineral deposits were small and did not have many soul stones. The earthworms were probably scared of starvation. If it was in the past, they would have looked down on such small mineral deposits. Now, they were still secretly keeping it a secret. After mining 2 mineral deposits in a row, his wallet was slightly less empty. Ning Shu returned to the system space and took out a lot of soul stones and golden soul stones to be purified by the main system. Now that the world of samsara was self-reliant, she could absorb more pure soul power. She felt great. She felt like her baby had finally grown up and didn't need to suck her blood anymore. Now, she only needed to repair the peerless martial art. She could also absorb some soul power. After sending away the large pile of soul stones, Ning Shu entered the peerless martial art. Looking at the huge lake of the law of nothingness, she sat down and looked at the sparkling lake. It was very beautiful and was not easy to be dirted. However, Ning Shu's heart was not beautiful at all. She took a stone and threw it in. Putong, the stone was swallowed up in the end. Ning Shu did not know what to do with this thing. If the peerless martial art had no faith and no ability to save itself, what should he do? Therefore, to repair the world as quickly as possible, Ning Shu could try any method. Anyway, no matter how big the reaction was, it would not be as big as throwing the will of the law of destruction inside. Ning Shu gave the law of nothingness a middle finger. Sister will conquer you sooner or later. Even if I can't, I can make you suffer. Ning Shu was terrified. If it was not for the peerless martial art, he would have fought with this girl. The world of reincarnation was settled. Now, it was time to deal with you. Ning Shu condensed a huge green water droplet and sprinkled it on the ground. He hoped to strengthen the energy hidden in the ground and rely on this energy to protect the world. Although it might not be useful, Ning Shu felt that it was better than nothing. Ning Shu put his hands on his waist and scolded the law of nothingness for a while. He felt very satisfied. So what if you are strong? I can't even talk back when I scold you. 2333, do you not want to do missions anymore? When Ning Shu returned to the system space, 2333 asked directly. Ning Shu, no, I have to do missions my whole life. Why would I not want to do them? Missions were missions. Resting was resting. When resting, one could do other things. 2333, everyone is doing missions. You are wandering around every day. I don't think you can complete your missions. Ning Shu did not care too much. Take it slow. If I rush, problems will arise. Every mission counts. He wanted everyone to have a 100% completion rate. In the previous chain of missions, there was a mission that only had a 60% completion rate. It seriously affected her performance. Do you know that your quests are piling up more and more? There are fewer and fewer quest takers now. Especially before the war, a bunch of failed quest takers were killed. Now there are a lot of low-level quests that no one is doing. 2333 sighed. I'm so worried. It's okay. I am the one doing the missions. I am not worried about you. Why are you worried? Ning Shu was not very worried. After all, every mission was one less mission. There were billions of worlds. The missions could not be completed. Did the organization not take in new members? Billions of worlds. Even if there was only one soul that could become a mission taker in each world, there should be a lot. Such a huge team. Sometimes, the consumption can't catch up with the replenishment. You know. 2333 said. What do I know? Thinking of such strict standards, Ning Shu understood instantly. There was no choice. If you passed, you would become a mission taker. If you failed, you would be completely annihilated. You could only grit your teeth and charge forward. You could be wiped out at any time. 2333, don't think too much about reincarnation. People will encounter many accidents in their lives. Even if an ordinary person dies, they may not be able to reincarnate. For example, they may not be able to enter the world of reincarnation. Otherwise, their soul may be destroyed. Also, even if you reincarnate, the soul will become weaker and weaker. Who knows when it will be completely annihilated? Don't feel wronged. Ning Shu, when did I feel wronged? I feel that I am awesome. Perhaps he was forced to take this path, but Ning Shu was willing to take this path. So what if he reincarnated again and again? He would not be able to transcend. If he reincarnated again, what would his life be like? There was no guarantee. Those mission takers who asked for a counterattack did not think about what they would encounter in this life before they reincarnated. Chapter 2479. Ning Shu threw the thoughts of the past few years to the back of his mind. He really liked his current life and didn't feel that doing missions was unbearable. Since he had to do missions for the rest of his life, he might as well try to fall in love. If he liked it, it wouldn't be so painful. Thinking of her peerless martial arts, the world of reincarnation, and the origin of the world, these things were all found in the world. There were millions and millions of worlds, so there weren't too many good things. Every mission was filled with endless expectations. Then, do system missions? 2333 asked. Ning Shu was very surprised. Are there really that many wild systems? Ning Shu felt that he really did a lot of system missions. How come there are still systems? 2333, there are so many, all kinds of systems, seizing fate, seizing souls, only you can think of. Ning Shu, 2333 would only explode with such enthusiasm when talking about wild systems. The rest of the time, he would be lost in thought. Spring. Ning Shu thought for a bit and decided to do a mission system. Okay, then I'll do a system mission. Okay, now. 2333 asked. Wait a bit. Ning Shu opened the video and watched the situation of the client. In any case, the client gave him a blessing, so he should watch it no matter what. Not long after Qin Ji Shui got married, Yuan Su moved out of this city and went to another city to develop. She bought a house in another city and took her household register with her. Qin Ji Shui and Tian Yu's life was still the same. Qin Ji Shui's pressure was so great that he was about to hit the Mediterranean, but Tian Yu was still like a carefree little girl. To Tian Yu, love and marriage were the same thing. Marriage was being together with the person you love forever. Qin Ji Shui not only wanted a monthly allowance, he also wanted to give Lula child support. The support had to be paid until she was 18 years old. Qin Ji Shui didn't want to give it, but when he thought of Yuan Su's mouth, he still obediently transferred some money every month. Because they moved, Luli's feelings for Qin Ji Shui also faded. Occasionally, when she called, Qin Ji Shui would anxiously hang up. It was like this once, and it was like this every time. Lulu was also very helpless and could only call less. Also, whenever she called, there would be a voice asking, "Hubby, who is it?" That voice made Lele feel uncomfortable. Probably because she was a mistress, Tian Yu kept a close eye on Qin Ji Shui in this aspect. Even when Qin Ji Shui called her own daughter, Tian Yu was worried that he would use this opportunity to contact his ex-wife. Although Qin Ji Shui was a little plump now, Tian Yu could still convince herself that this was the man she loved very much, the man she loved so much. Add to that the various unbearable pregnancy reactions during pregnancy, and the sensitivity of the mind, Qin Ji Shui had to go to work honestly and get off work on time, not even a little later. Qin Ji Shui felt like he was a bird that was released at a fixed time, then returned at a fixed time. There was no room for discussion. After Tian Yu gave birth, she was still in confinement. She clamored to sign up for fitness and yoga classes, saying that she wanted to maintain a fit and beautiful figure. After that, Qin Ji Shui began the painful process of raising a child. In Ning Shu's opinion, there should be such a person to deal with him. Of course, fitness and yoga classes cost a lot of money, so Qin Ji Shui was already numb to it. In the end, the two of them had a sharp argument. Tian Yu said that Qin Ji Shui couldn't even fulfill such a small request, while Qin Ji Shui said that Tian Yu only knew how to spend money every day. In any case, Qin Ji Shui eventually became the person he hated the most. His mouth was full of money, and he only thought about money all day long. He wanted money, he wanted money, he wanted money. When he couldn't get Tian Yu's understanding and comfort after suffering so much, Qin Ji Shui finally exploded. In the end, the two of them quarreled and everyone took 2 steps back. Tian Yu also felt sorry for her husband and decided to go out to work. It was impossible for Tian Yu to become a forensic doctor. After all, she got married right after she graduated. Even if the unit needed someone, there would be someone else to fill in. There was no reason to wait for her to come to work. You can't just let someone go to work well and then ask them to retire. Tian Yu couldn't go to a national unit and could only go to a normal unit to work as an office clerk. In any case, she was still a university graduate. Coincidentally, Tian Yu went to work at Tang Boda's company and got hired. Tang Boda saw his company's work tag hanging around Tian Yu's neck and couldn't help but ask, "You're not a forensic doctor anymore." Tian Yu was especially embarrassed to see the man who proposed to her in the past. Moreover, he was the boss of the company she worked for. She only said that she wasn't a forensic doctor anymore. Back in the office, Tian Yu slumped in her seat. She looked at the tall and straight boss and thought about Qin Ji Shui. There was no comparison. Because of her family's poor financial situation, she had no choice but to come out to work. Tian Yu bit her lips, her expression a little unwilling. Tang Boda saw that Tian Yu's employee profile had the word "married" written on it and threw it aside. After Tian Yu got off work, Qin Ji Shui came to pick her up. Coincidentally, Tang Boda also came out at this time. He was majestic, followed by a team of elites in suits and ties, looking especially domineering. Tian Yu hurriedly dragged her husband into the car. She looked at other people's cars and then at this car. This car was bought by her under pressure. Of course, it couldn't compare to Tang Boda's luxury car in front. Qin Ji Shui was a little puzzled that Tian Yu's face suddenly turned black. He wondered if she was wronged at work. Tian Yu's mood could be described as unbearable. She once had a chance to reach the peak of her life, but she didn't cherish it. Now, she felt especially regretful. When there was a comparison, there would be hurt. Tian Yu felt that Qin Ji Shui couldn't compare to Tang Boda who proposed to her in every aspect. She couldn't stand him in every aspect. Even her own daughter was a little displeased. Love the house, love the crow. She felt that this man wasn't good, so naturally, her daughter didn't like him either. Moreover, she cried all night long, so much so that it gave her a headache. She still had to go to work the next day. Tian Yu felt that this life wasn't quite the same as what she imagined. The life she imagined was to go to work and get off work with Qin Ji Shui every day. Every day, there would be many cases to discuss together. She didn't need to rush about for the sake of living but for her dreams. She didn't need to worry about money and had a life together with Qin Ji Shui. But now, it was different. She got pregnant not long after they got married. She naturally couldn't go to work and become a forensic doctor. Even if she had the chance to become one, her body wouldn't allow it. Tian Yu sighed. In the company, she saw that he was always in a suit and had a particular look. He seemed to be especially charming. In the company, Tang Boda was practically the target of all the women. Although his ex-wife was dead, Tang Boda was really a golden turtle's son-in-law. He had looks and money. Such a treasure that everyone was thinking about, but she missed it. It was too regretful, especially regretful. Chapter 2480. The earthworm felt that it was about to explode from anger because of this two-legged monster. Ning Shu swaggered out of the city gate with the earthworm. As soon as she walked over, the guards surrounded her. The earthworm's voice was sharp. "Why aren't you invisible? I want to be caught." Ning Shu said. How could she fish in troubled waters without causing a disturbance? One of the guards recognized Ning Shu. Why are you here again? Where's your identity card? I don't have one. Ning Shu said directly. No identity card? Catch her. A tall and sturdy bodyguard said directly. His voice was low and deep, and there was the sound of a strong army fighting. The guard took out a magic tool. This magic tool looked like a bottle. It was a jade bottle. A powerful suction force directly sucked Ning Shu into the magic tool. The earthworm clung tightly to Ning Shu. I just want to experience the normal world. I don't want to take such risks with you. After entering the jade bottle, Ning Shu found that this was a vast space. Besides Ning Shu, there were many souls imprisoned here. Ning Shu in red clothes was very eye-catching. These wandering souls glanced at Ning Shu and withdrew their gazes. In addition to the souls of humans, there were also some souls of spirit beasts. According to the guards, they killed spirit beasts to collect their souls. Otherwise, they collected the souls that were wandering outside the city. These people's souls were not very strong. Some of their souls were almost transparent. Ning Shu's soul was the toughest here. Ning Shu found a place to sit down and closed her eyes. No one came to disturb her. The earthworm was chattering non-stop. It said that it was uncomfortable. It seemed that this space could not contain living creatures, so the earthworm was uncomfortable. Ning Shu set up a barrier around its body. Then, she dripped a drop of green water on its body. When the water dripped on the earthworm's body, the black spots on its body disappeared. Wow, what is this? Give me a little more. Give me a little more. The earthworm felt very comfortable. It was as if it was bathing in golden soul liquid. Its entire body was filled with a light and airy feeling. Dream on. Ning Shu never spoiled it. The earthworm's disgusted face squeezed out a disappointed expression. Ning Shu did not look at it. Ning Shu saw that the other souls were huddled together. She stayed in a corner and slowly moved towards these souls, wanting to ask them something. Seeing Ning Shu move over, these souls quickly moved away. Ning Shu, could it be that she looked very repulsive? Ning Shu touched her face. She wasn't ugly. Ning Shu felt that her taste in beauty was getting better and better. Furthermore, with 2 law imprints on her body, her temperament wouldn't be too bad. Why did he dodge when he saw him? It was because of Ning Shu's appearance that the other souls were not willing to come into contact with. Looking at the soul that was as solid as a real person, the other souls instinctively felt suffocated. Ning Shu moved in that direction again. In the end, she still moved away. Ning Shu was depressed to find that he was really afraid of her approaching. Ning Shu fiercely grabbed a soul. Of course, she grabbed it with a barrier. This soul was so scared that its soul was about to scatter. Where were you caught from? Ning Shu asked. My family gave me to Lord Guard General. The soul stammered. Forget it. Why ask this? Where are we going now? I don't know. The soul stammered. Clearly, it was frightened by Ning Shu. Ning Shu sighed. These souls probably knew that they were going to be made into soul liquid. However, they did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. Mission enforcers like them would be killed if they did something wrong. Their soul power would be provided to others. Ning Shu let go of the soul. The soul rolled and crawled away from Ning Shu. It looked like it was being defiled by Ning Shu. It was especially funny. Ning Shu stood against the wall. After a while, Ning Shu said to the earthworm, "Do you feel hot?" Ning Shu felt that the temperature of the entire space was getting higher and higher. It was as if the soul was going to be roasted. Ning Shu felt that it was burning. However, the other souls could not bear it. It was as if a person was being burned. The soul was like the body. It was twisted in pain. Their expressions were hideous. This temperature should be targeted at the soul. It was estimated that there was an array in this spiritual tool. That was why the temperature was getting higher and higher. The current situation really felt a bit like a mountain of knives and a sea of flames in hell. All of his soul bodies had been dyed with an unknown flame. Ning Shu saw that this flame was a bit like the heavenly fire. However, this flame could not be extinguished. It was as if it was going to burn the soul to ashes. All the souls were howling in pain. Under the roasting of this heat, the souls of the stronger spiritual beasts began to become thin. The souls of the humans became more transparent. There were also some souls who saw Ning Shu standing there. It seemed that she did not feel anything. They crawled towards her and begged for help. "Save us. Please. It's so painful." Ning Shu sighed. Everyone knew that the souls were going to be dealt with when they died. However, no one knew how. Then, everyone took the soul liquid and conducted various transactions. "I'm in so much pain. It's so painful. Save me," the souls were being roasted. It was almost like hell. Ning Shu pointed her finger. There was water sprinkling on these souls. However, it was useless. Ordinary water was useless. Ning Shu used green water droplets and sprinkled them on these souls. The souls sizzled. The entire space was filled with mist. Ning Shu pointed at the black hole. This was the black hole that connected to the world of samsara. "Go in." Some women knelt down and bowed to Ning Shu. No matter what was in the black hole, it was fine as long as they were not roasted. The souls walked into the black hole. Some spiritual beasts rudely pushed the humans away and drilled into the black hole. Although the beasts did not have the intelligence of humans, they had keen intuition. When the humans saw the spiritual beasts rushing into the black hole, they also desperately squeezed into the black hole. When the souls were gone, the black hole slowly closed. Ning Shu fanned himself with his sleeve. "Oh my God, it's so hot. Weren't you acting cool before? Look at you now." The earthworm despised. "I have two appearances in front of people and behind them. Outside, I have to pretend to be noble and elegant. When I'm alone, isn't it tiring? Who am I showing it to?" Ning Shu swung his sleeve. Ning Shu felt hot. He swung his sleeve. Unlike ordinary souls, he was not roasted by the fire. What a hypocritical two-legged monster. The earthworm despised. After turning into a soul, Ning Shu did not feel hungry. He did not feel cold or hot. Today, he even felt a flaming mountain. The feeling of a sauna was great. With the protection of two law imprints, how could it be evaporated by such a little temperature? Although the law of wood was afraid of fire, the law of water was not. Therefore, Ning Shu steamed a sauna/BK. Chapter 2481. Ning Shu stayed here because he wanted to enter the interior. Could it be that all souls were roasted like this first, causing them to suffer so much that they lost their consciousness before turning into a watery soul fluid? Ning Shu had no qualms about digging out soul stones. Those were soul stones formed by absorbing the power of souls. To Ning Shu, it was like a natural mineral deposit. It was the same as being born. But to directly destroy souls with consciousness like this, Ning Shu felt a bit of a psychological burden. Moreover, if he brought these souls to the world of reincarnation below and jumped into the rebirth pool, he could directly press some of the troublesome souls into the rebirth pool and let them reincarnate. He could even obtain some soul power. Moreover, it was pure energy that nourished his world of reincarnation. In the future, no matter how many leaves it produced or how many worlds grew, they would all be nourished by the power of souls. Ning Shu rubbed his fists and prepared to snatch as many souls as he could from these people. The souls of this world couldn't enter below because once a person reached 4, their soul would be captured and locked up. No matter how capable the world of reincarnation was, they couldn't directly reach into this world to capture people. Although Ning Shu felt that he was being used by the heavenly Tao again, he was willing to do so because there were benefits. Ning Shu fanned himself with his sleeves as he pondered in his heart. The opening of the spirit tool opened. Ning Shu even heard a man's voice. It seemed to be the voice of that Wei Jiang or something. There should be some soul fluid flowing out this time, he said in a low voice. But after pouring it out several times, not a single drop of soul fluid came out. This kind of soul fluid was very coarse. It was a space built with fiery stones that restrained souls. After passing through the array, it would directly turn the soul into the most turbid soul fluid. At this time, it needed to be processed a second time. Why is there nothing? Wei Jiang was astonished. Why was there nothing? He had clearly captured so many souls before, how could there be nothing? Wei Jiang didn't give up and poured the spirit tool several times, but it didn't fall. He was incomparably puzzled. He used his consciousness to scan the situation inside the bottle, but there was nothing. Ning Shu was concealed within the barrier. Now the entire space was empty. There wasn't even a single soul. Wei Jiang was shocked. Where did all the souls go? Could it be that there was a problem with his spirit tool, and those souls all ran away? But even if he ran out, he should still be able to see him. Wei Jiang facepalmed. It wasn't easy to get rid of so many spirit beasts and some human souls. He originally thought that he would be able to take the lead this time, but he didn't expect that all the souls would disappear. There were many guard generals like him in the city. The more souls they captured, the better their performance would be, and the more rewards they would receive. Especially the souls of spirit beasts, the more the better. Spirit beasts were not like humans who lived in cities. They lived in the mountains. If they wanted to obtain souls, they would have to hunt them down. Of course, they couldn't rule out the possibility that some spirit beasts had died and their souls were wandering around. At this time, these guards were the ones who benefited. He had been saving up for a long time, and now his soul was gone. What the fuck? Gone. The spirit artifact was not broken, so how could it have disappeared? Or was it that someone had swapped his spirit artifact? Of course, there were also some guard generals who killed others to steal their treasures, assassinated other guard generals, and stole their spirit artifacts. In short, these souls were his performance, his face, and his bright future. Wei Jiang was furious. It was almost time for the assessment. Was he going to take the empty spirit artifact to report? But the spirit artifact had his consciousness and he had placed a restriction on it. How could the soul disappear? He didn't believe it. Wei Jiang was so angry that he almost smashed the spirit artifact. However, he raised it and put it away, because if he broke it, he would definitely be punished. Without any other choice, Wei Jiang could only go out of the city to hunt spirit beasts. The stronger the spirit beast, the stronger the soul. Some wild beasts that didn't have any fighting strength had very weak souls and didn't have any strength at all. Wei Jiang was annoyed and angry. The culprit, Ning Shu, sat on the ground and kept fanning himself with his sleeves. He even said to the earthworm on his shoulder, "This is too hot. I feel like I'm going to melt." As time passed, the temperature became higher and higher. However, when it reached a certain level, it would drop and become cool. However, after a while, it would become extremely hot again. One cold and one hot, such a cycle. If he had a physical body, he would probably have caught a cold long ago. Should I leave this place and find a new place to torment myself? Ning Shu stood up and was about to destroy the spirit artifact and another soul was thrown in. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to be something that looked like a rabbit but also not a rabbit. However, it was much bigger than an ordinary rabbit. Its two front teeth were incomparably sharp and its eyes were completely red. From the soul, it was a very bloodthirsty rabbit. When these rabbits saw Ning Shu, they rushed towards her without thinking. Ning Shu was too lazy to move and casually set up a barrier. The rabbit was trapped inside and its two front paws were constantly digging at the barrier. In other words, there would be a lot of souls here. This Wei Jiang would catch a lot of souls. Ning Shu sat down. Then she would guard here. Maybe there would be a lot of souls. Once she had accumulated enough, she would send them away. It didn't take much effort to send the souls away. Comfortable. It felt great to enter the spirit artifacts of these Wei Jiang. Fortunately, she caught the souls and then sent them away. If there were no souls, these Wei Jiang might kill people to make up the numbers. From Ning Shu's point of view, these Wei Jiang's business was more or less the same. Of course, the more the better. Of course, it didn't rule out that some Wei Jiang would kill people to make up the numbers. Now there were a few more spirit beast souls in the space. It seemed that this Wei Jiang had already left the city. After returning to the city, she changed the bottle of another Wei Jiang. One after another, the souls were thrown into the spirit artifact. Ning Shu suspected that the Wei Jiang was killing people outside. However, the souls of these spirit beasts were relatively weak. There were no powerful spirit beasts. It was estimated that the souls killed were relatively weak spirit beasts. Ning Shu held her chin and sighed. She couldn't get the soul stone in the second level and had to do these things bitterly. Moreover, if these souls were released, the Wei Jiang wouldn't stop collecting souls. Maybe because these souls were released, he would kill more people. She couldn't get the little bit of soul power in the reincarnation pool. It was directly absorbed by the world of samsara. For example, when the crazy rabbit spirit beast saw that it couldn't do anything to Ning Shu, it gave up. Besides, some snake-like spirit beast souls were thrown in. The rabbit was so scared that it trembled in the corner. Although it had become a soul, it was still very scared. Ning Shu felt that this place would soon become a zoo. There were all kinds of spirit beast souls. Chapter 2482. When Lingji heard her young miss say this, she immediately felt that her young miss's heart was very bitter. Young miss, Lingji will send it to her. Please don't be so upset. Lingji returned with the things. Her face was flushed red and she looked extremely embarrassed. Young miss, Ning Shu snorted. What's wrong? Young miss, this servant went to concubine Mother Yan's courtyard. The entire courtyard. The entire courtyard was filled with sounds. Ning Shu understood and waved his hand. All right, don't say any more. Go to Madame's room. Ning Shu went to the heir's mother, the entrusted mother-in-law's courtyard. He walked in and respectfully bowed. Mother-in-law, when the marquise saw Ning Shu sigh, her face hardened. What's the matter? Ning Shu's cowardly expression and his lack of courage to speak made the marquise very annoyed. What's wrong? Yes, mother. Can you let the heir take care of his body? He can't always empty his body. What if his kidneys are depleted? Ning Shu said while using a handkerchief to wipe the corners of her eyes. She looked like she was about to cry. The marquise was very uncomfortable with her daughter-in-law's appearance. She looked sick all day long. How could she carry on the family line? Why don't you tell him about this? You are husband and wife. You should tell him about this matter. The marquise said. If she had to say this, what was the point of marrying a daughter-in-law? Ning Shu had a fucked-up expression on her face. She was embarrassed, upset, and desperate. Like a drama queen, she bowed down. Heir, he never comes to daughter-in-law's courtyard. Daughter-in-law really wants to carry on the Marquis Fu's ancestral line, but this is not something that daughter-in-law can do alone. If you really give birth, you will make a fuss. The Marquise's face hardened. It made her, who was graceful and elegant, look especially imposing. Speaking of which, being a daughter-in-law in the inner courtyard was really tough. The entrusted mother-in-law was the Marquise, and the Marquise also had the old madam. Although the Marquise was in charge of everything, she still had to listen to the old madam's opinion on some important matters. The entrusted mother-in-law's life was really not good. She had to face 2 female elders urging her to have a child. How could one person give birth to a child? The Marquise's face was somewhat embarrassed and angry, thinking that her daughter-in-law had come to denounce her. Ning Shu did not see the expression on the Marquise's face and tried his best to let the blood rush to his face. With a red face, he shyly said to the Marquise, "Mother, daughter-in-law wants heir to control himself a bit." Daughter-in-law heard from the doctor that if he is too diligent, it will not be easy to get pregnant and will also harm his body. Also, this daughter-in-law had a maidservant send something over when it was almost noon today. There was still some movement in that room. I heard that they had been busy the whole night and were busy again in the morning. Daughter-in-law heard that the assistant minister of the Ministry of War was a bastard who didn't know how to control himself. In the end, he died in the belly of a brothel girl. The assistant minister of the Ministry of War was impeached by the imperial censor because of this, Ning Shu said softly. The Marquise's face became more and more unsightly. Thinking that this concubine was given to her son by her, her daughter-in-law's words were like a slap to her face. However, seeing that her daughter-in-law's face was full of sincerity, she could not say anything. Her heart was filled with anger. You should also quickly get pregnant. You have been married for a year and until now you have not had a child. Quickly get pregnant. The Marquise's heart was uncomfortable, and she poked at Ning Shu's sore spot. Ning Shu's face instantly revealed an uncomfortable expression. She said timidly, "Daughter-in-law has no choice. The crown prince has never come to my room, but daughter-in-law really can't do anything that displeases the crown prince. Heir likes concubine Yen. Daughter-in-law wants to wait until concubine Yen is pregnant and bring the child here to raise." What are you saying? The son of the Marquise's first wife should of course crawl out from the mother's belly. If you can't even give birth to a child, what kind of woman are you? The Marquise's voice was somewhat sharp and unkind. Ning Shu used a handkerchief to cover his twitching mouth, and looked at the Marquise with a pleading gaze. Then mother-in-law, what should daughter-in-law do? Daughter-in-law really doesn't know what to do. You know how to make someone give birth to a child. You want to give birth. Facing Ning Shu's gaze, the Marquise could not suppress her anger. Finally, she waved her hand, "You may leave." Ning Shu shook his handkerchief and bowed before leaving. Afterwards, heir apparent was called over by his mother and scolded. She warned him, just like how she warned the emperor, that he should be treated equally, and that he should have a child with his first wife. After being scolded by his mother, heir apparent rushed to Ning Shu's courtyard, and vented his anger on Ning Shu. He blabbered that Ning Shu did not act like a wife, and that he only knew how to be jealous all day long. He even complained to his mother. Heir apparent's face was like jade, and he had the appearance of a noble young master. However, when he opened his mouth, he said that Ning Shu was not a qualified wife. Ning Shu covered his face with a handkerchief, and ran to the front of the Marquise with tears in his eyes, feeling wronged. Daughter-in-law is concerned about her health. She did not come to daughter-in-law's room. Daughter-in-law does not blame her. It is daughter-in-law's fault. Daughter-in-law is not liked by him. Heir apparent said that he wants to divorce daughter-in-law. Daughter-in-law, daughter-in-law, the Marquise's ears were filled with Ning Shu's cries, which made the Marquise's head explode. Finally, she slapped the table and said, "You are his legal wife, how can he divorce you like this?" No, it is daughter-in-law's fault. Daughter-in-law was not able to give birth to a child for heir apparent. Heir apparent is not wrong to divorce daughter-in-law. The marquise was annoyed to death by this daughter-in-law. She wanted to vent her anger on her, but it seemed that she was not wrong. In short, the marquise was as angry as a toad. Ning Shu felt that some of the anger in his heart had been released, and his heart did not feel as uncomfortable. There was no reason for her to bear the pressure of bearing a child while heir apparent was dissolute every day. Moreover, even if they wanted to rush the child, they should rush concubine Yen and heir apparent, who applauded for love every day. However, all possessed bodies had been modified and could not get pregnant. They were especially resistant to wear and would not break. Perhaps if there was a problem, the system could repair it. It did not matter if it was 24 hours a day. The marquise was almost angered to death. Ning Shu comforted her, saying that mother-in-law should not be angry and that her body should not be damaged. The marquise called concubine Yen over and spoke for a while. She urged her to get pregnant quickly. Since she was so doted on, she should get pregnant quickly. That way, she could teach her useless daughter-in-law a lesson. The eldest son crawled out of the concubine's belly. It was not because of the incompetence of the wife. Concubine Yan's mouth twitched. He was a man, so what if he became a woman and did it with another man? He could not do it. Fortunately, with the system's help, there was no way she would get pregnant/BK. Chapter 2483. Therefore, the marquise's desire to have a grandson could never be satisfied. Under the man's nourishment, concubine Yen shone brightly and was very beautiful. The marquise's heart ached unbearably as she envied her. Concubine Yen did not take the marquise's words to heart. She was not in the mood to compete with a concubine all day long. Completing the system's task was more important. The body was a weapon. Did she need to compete with these women? Anyway, no matter what the marquise said, the heir was always with concubine Yen and wished they could never be separated. The marquise was so angry that she was about to have a cerebral hemorrhage. Anyway, she was the one who gave the child to her son. She had lifted a stone only to hit her own foot. She should be angry. She could not push all the responsibility to her daughter-in-law. It was her fault that she did not give birth to a child. Now, who told her to make trouble for her daughter-in-law and stuffed another woman into her son's room? Ning Shu found it very interesting to watch the mother and son act out a drama every day. Once the fire spread to her, Ning Shu immediately began to cry and ran to the marquise to cry. The heir was very protective of this concubine and had the tendency of spoiling her and neglecting her. This made the marquise's head hurt. She wanted to directly sell this plaything, but her son did not allow it. What made the marquise even more surprised was that her husband, the marquise, frowned and told her not to worry about her son's room. Her son had grown up. The marquise had never cared about the matters of the concubine. He left all the matters of the concubine to his wife. Now, he suddenly told her not to interfere with her son's room. This made the marquise's heart jump. Was the marquise dissatisfied with her ability to manage the concubine? Or was there some other reason? In short, the marquise was both shocked and angry. Why didn't she see that this little wench was so capable of causing trouble? Did she think that she could become a phoenix just by being a concubine? There were many ways to deal with her. Ning Shu extracted some information from the description. Then one day, after lunch, he went to the marquise and said that they would go together to digest the food. When the marquise saw Ning Shu, her mind instantly rang with 3 voices, as if she had been brainwashed. I won't go. You go by yourself. The marquise was now just like the previous client, depressed and suffocated. Especially when the marquis had asked his mother to help him take care of the backyard. What was the meaning of this? Didn't she say that she didn't manage the backyard well, so she asked her mother-in-law to help look after it? Afterwards, the old madam called the marquise over and scolded her, which almost made the marquise sick from anger. Speaking of which, the main culprit was this daughter-in-law in front of her. If she could let her husband's heart be with her, why would she find trouble for no reason and insist on giving such a vixen to her son? Every day she seduced her son to be so happy that he forgot home. If her daughter-in-law worked hard and gave birth to a grandson of the Marquis Fu, why would she bother to be a bad person? In short, it was her daughter-in-law's fault. Now, she even shamelessly invited her to take a walk with her to help with digestion. She was not in the mood. Seeing this daughter-in-law of hers made her heart ache. Idiot! Ning Shu pretended not to see the marquise's ashen face and said to her mother-in-law with a smile, "Daughter-in-law thinks that walking more is good for the body. Daughter-in-law is now recuperating and striving to have a child soon. Daughter-in-law heard that mother-in-law is not feeling well and wants to go out with you to get some fresh air." In the garden. The marquise did feel that the room was stuffy and it was good to go out and get some fresh air and sunshine. Therefore, surrounded by maids, she went to the garden. The Marquis Fu occupied a large area. There were pavilions, terraces, gardens, fish ponds, small bridges, flowing water, rockery and strange rocks. The sun shone down warmly and the flowers in the garden were in full bloom. It was a scene of wealth and splendor. Ning Shu handed the fish food to the marquise and then sprinkled it in the water himself. The koi fishes crowded together to fight for the food. Even though the sun was shining, the marquise's face was still dark. "Ah!" A coquettish voice rang out, but it seemed that someone had covered the mouth. It was like an auditory hallucination. The marquise heard it. Ning Shu asked, "Did you hear something?" Of course, Ning Shu heard it. Not only that, but he also saw the marquis and concubine Yen inside the rockery. The structure of the rockery was not easy for passers-by to find. They could find people passing by, but it was not easy to find people inside. Even so, the marquis and concubine Yen were not separated and stuck together. Was it a pleasant surprise? Was it unexpected? Ning Shu looked at the marquise blankly. What sound? There was no sound. The marquise was puzzled. Did she really hear it wrong? As a daughter-in-law, of course she wanted to please the marquise. She said, "Maybe a maid passed by and made a sound." Ning Shu called out to her personal maidservant, Lingji. "Bring a few people to check the surroundings and see if anything happened to any of the maidservants." As Ning Shu instructed, he used his psychic power to turn it into a thin needle and pricked concubine Yen's back. Woo! A suppressed sound came from the throat. This time, everyone heard it clearly. The sound came from inside the rockery. The marquise's face immediately turned ugly. Her first thought was that the manservant and the maid were doing something dirty behind their master's back. They entered the rockery one by one and were knocked aside by a man who covered his face with clothes. This man was not missing a single piece of clothing. He grabbed concubine Yan's clothes and ran away while covering his face. Although this action was a bit deceiving, no one saw his face and he did not dare to say anything. But the marquise and the marquise were husband and wife. They had been married for more than 10 years. She knew her husband very well. Moreover, the clothes he was wearing were not for a servant. Everyone knew in their hearts, but they lowered their heads and did not say a word. Concubine Yen leaned against the wall. She looked very attractive. Even the maids could not help but blush when they saw her. The marquise felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her whole body froze. Then she gritted her teeth and looked at concubine Yen. Concubine Yen slowly tidied up her clothes. She complained that she was unlucky to be seen by this mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Ever since he was bound to this damn system, his moral integrity had been eroded. He had been to many worlds and was familiar with this kind of thing. It would be best if he was driven out. This kind of attitude was provocative to the marquise. No wonder the marquise, who did not care about the inner court, was making things difficult for her for this little wench. She was confused. So this was the reason. The Marquise wished she could beat this little wench to death. /BK. Chapter 2484. Ning Shu curled himself up into a ball. At this time, it wasn't her turn to speak. Concubine Yen seemed to have victory in her grasp. She probably knew that all the men who had a brief relationship with her couldn't leave her. In fact, it didn't matter if these men suddenly died by his side. If they couldn't control their lower half, then Ma Feng deserved to die. Ning Shu didn't know what kind of feelings the client had for the heir and was a bit uncertain. The client and the heir's husband were arranged by their parents and arranged by a matchmaker. There wasn't any deep relationship between them. The client would naturally treat her husband as the sky and serve him well regardless of whether she loved him or not. Therefore, Ning Shu decided to observe the heir for the time being. Although his status was noble, the client didn't know what kind of person he was. She only heard the matchmaker talk about Pan An's appearance and how he was in high spirits. But after getting married, they didn't spend much time together and didn't interact much. The heir also seemed to like socializing. When he had nothing to do, he would hang out with the heirs of other marquises' manors and the sons of ministers. The time they spent together was even less than that concubine Yen. According to Ning Shu, the client could directly force the heir one day and have a child. Then she could sit on a high platform and live a rich life. In ancient times, a woman without a child had no status at all. At this time, status was completely useless. But the client couldn't do it. Ning Shu could do it, but he didn't want to have anything to do with such a man. No matter how handsome and talented he was, in the end, he was still a man who couldn't control two pieces of meat. Moreover, this was the client's husband. She had better not give her a bad review. The Marquise's eyes rolled back and she fainted from anger. Ning Shu hurriedly supported her and pinched her while shouting, "Mother-in-law." The Marquise was carried back to the courtyard in a flurry. She called for a doctor and brewed medicine. The doctor said that the Marquise's anger had attacked her heart and she had fainted. Even the white-haired old madam was alarmed and came over with her walking stick to ask what happened. The Marquise woke up and cried uncontrollably towards the old madam. The old madam ordered all the servants in the room to leave. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law talked about something in the room. When the old madam came out, her face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Ning Shu laughed in his heart. Now he didn't have to stare at her stomach all day. For the glory of the family, this matter had to be suppressed. It was embarrassing for a father to snatch a woman from his son. It wasn't that she didn't want to have children, but it hadn't happened yet. This matter would definitely not be publicized, so Ning Shu was not worried at all. Even if the man couldn't bear to part with concubine Yen, according to the old matriarch's ruthlessness, she wouldn't let concubine Yen leave this manor. Lingji's face was pale as she followed Ning Shu back to the courtyard. She said to Ning Shu in disbelief, "Miss," Ning Shu asked, "What's wrong?" Concubine Yen had an affair with someone, an affair. Lingji said. Ning Shu took a sip of tea and put down the teacup. "Which eye of yours saw this? Just pretend you didn't see it. Don't spread it around, or you'll lose your life." Lingji immediately covered her mouth and didn't dare to say anything more. The atmosphere in the manor had become very strange these days. Concubine Yen was left in her courtyard by the old matriarch. She either copied Buddhist scriptures or recited scriptures all day long. But good things were given out in boxes. It seemed that the old matriarch liked concubine Yen, so she gave her so many gifts and valued her so much. So the old matriarch punished her even more. Even the Marquis and the Crown Prince couldn't say anything. "I just wanted to keep this girl by my side and teach her. I didn't beat her or scold her. Why are you so anxious?" When the old matriarch saw the father and son's anxious faces, she was even more disgusted and afraid of concubine Yen. Both of you go and accompany your wives. Spend some time with them. The old matriarch said with the help of her walking stick. The father and son left the old matriarch's courtyard and the atmosphere became very strange. The Marquis felt a little uncomfortable facing his son because his father had made him a cuckold. The Crown Prince snorted. His image of a lofty father had collapsed. Ning Shu was stroking the cat. This snow-white cat had been entrusted to him. It had blue eyes and was a beautiful cat. Lingji rushed over excitedly and bowed. She said happily, "Miss, the Crown Prince is coming this way. Hurry and tidy up." Ning Shu let go of the cat, patted its fur, and greeted the angry Crown Prince. The Crown Prince walked in and ignored Ning Shu who was bowing. He sat down and drank a cup of water. He was so angry that he smashed the quilt into pieces. Lingji was so scared that she almost screamed. But she covered her mouth and didn't say anything. Ning Shu looked calm and asked, "Crown Prince, what happened? Don't you know what happened?" The Crown Prince looked at Ning Shu. "Damn, why are you angry with me?" Ning Shu poured a cup of water and drank by himself. "I don't understand what you mean. I don't know anything. If you have the ability, go and make a scene with your father." The Crown Prince was depressed. He hated the Marquis and blamed him for making his mother sick. He didn't know how to behave. The Crown Prince thought for a moment and said to Ning Shu, "Go and tell grandmother tomorrow and ask her to release concubine Yen." Ning Shu was unmoved. "Okay, I will tell the old madam tomorrow. But I can't guarantee that concubine Yen will come back." "Okay, then it's getting late. Let's rest," the Crown Prince said. Ning Shu immediately broke into a smile. "Okay." The Crown Prince saw Ning Shu smile like a wolf. His lips were pursed and his smile looked like a bloody mouth. It was very scary. The Crown Prince didn't like this wife, but seeing her smile like this, as if she wanted to eat him alive, made him sick. "I will sleep in the study." Then he flung his sleeves and left. "Lingji, didn't he say he wanted to rest? Why did he fling his sleeves and leave?" Lingji's happy expression froze. She looked sad. If this goes on, when will Miss be able to get pregnant with the Crown Prince? Ning Shu wasn't worried at all. Only the elders of the Marquis's mansion would be worried. Ning Shu checked the pulse of this body. Other than being a little weak, there were no other problems. If she took care of herself and exercised more, it would be easy for her to get pregnant. When concubine Yan's matter was resolved, she could leave this world. When the elders forced the Crown Prince to sleep with her, she could give birth to a child. With a child, she could enjoy a rich life without worries. Why should she care about love? She could do whatever she wanted. Since she couldn't change it, she could only live comfortably. As for the Crown Prince, who cared if he died? He could do whatever he wanted, /BK. Chapter 2485. In the end, she was the one who cried every day. Lingji was so worried that she didn't know what to do. She helped Ning Shu sleep and then kept watch at night. Ning Shu heard Lingji sigh the entire night. She wasn't worried, but the people around her were. It was as if her life would be ruined if she didn't have a child. He went to greet the old madam early in the morning. The old madam was having breakfast, and the beautiful concubine Yen was waiting on her. She served the old madam 3 times a day. At night, she had to keep watch and pour tea for the old madam. When the old madam wanted to rinse her mouth and spit, concubine Yen had to carry a spittoon to the old madam. When she heard the old madam spit out a mouthful of thick phlegm, she felt disgusted. Concubine Yen had never encountered such a situation. Ever since she was bound to the system, all the men treated her like the apple of their eye. Concubine Yen suppressed her dissatisfaction in her heart. She only wanted to obtain the power of these men, but she didn't think that these women in the backyard were always scheming against each other. It wasn't as comfortable as the modern world. After all, there was freedom in the modern world. The ancient world was so annoying. However, the power of the emperors and nobles in the ancient world was the most abundant. Concubine Yan's heart was in chaos. This old madam was always tormenting people. Ning Shu bowed to the old madam obediently and glanced at Concubine Yan. He thought about the fact that there was a man in Concubine Yan's body. Judging from her behavior, she was completely a woman. He didn't expect her to be a man. It seemed that she was an old fox who had transmigrated. It was just like how no one could tell that she was a man. Concubine Yan felt Ning Shu's gaze and curtsied to Ning Shu coquettishly. When the old madam saw her behavior, her face darkened. Perhaps men liked this kind of coquettish behavior, but there were no men here. Women really couldn't stand this kind of behavior. "Have you eaten?" asked the old madam, Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled and said, "Granddaughter-in-law has eaten. Granddaughter-in-law is here to tell you something." The old madam glanced at Concubine Yan and asked, "You're here for her, right?" Ning Shu said, "Old madam, granddaughter-in-law." He glanced at Concubine Yan. The old madam was old enough to know what kind of tricks the younger generation wanted to play. If you want him back, let them come and ask for him themselves. How can you urge a woman to come and ask for him? In front of Concubine Yan, the old madam didn't hold back at all. But Concubine Yan didn't care at all. When the energy was full, she left directly. What could the people of this world do to her? Taking advantage of his seniority was of no use to him at all. Ning Shu smiled awkwardly. "The heir didn't ask me to come. It's just that you don't have anyone to serve you, so I want Concubine Yan to go back." The old madam was exasperated. "Can't you serve the heir apparent?" He had married a stupid granddaughter-in-law who still had to worry about her at such an old age. It was simply killing him. When he was old, there was still a vixen in his house, seducing him to the point that he no longer had any morals. If this matter were to spread out, what would he look like? Would he still be the Marquis? If this spread to the imperial family, he would definitely be stripped of his title. At such an old age, he couldn't even resist a woman's charms. The old madam was more tolerant of her grandson, but she was very disappointed in her son. Moreover, she had snatched the woman in her son's room. How shameful. Ning Shu shrank his neck and said in a small voice, "I'm afraid that I can't take good care of the heir apparent. The heir apparent prefers Concubine Yan, so I shamelessly asked you to come and ask for her." Concubine Yan was a little surprised. This ancient woman was too virtuous. At this time, she still wanted to ask for her husband's wife. TSK, these men in ancient times were really lucky. Of course, this also had to do with the fact that men were the heads of the family and women basically didn't go out to work. Without a source of income, they had to compromise and be obedient if they wanted to survive. That's enough. If the heir apparent wants you to ask for her, just tell him to come and find me. The old madam's face darkened as she chased Ning Shu away. Also, Ning Shu hurriedly turned back to listen to the old madam's instructions. He was all ears. "If your mother-in-law stuffs another woman into the heir apparent's room, come and tell me first. I'll take a look." Yes, granddaughter-in-law will remember. She didn't expect to receive an imperial sword. The Marchioness probably stuffed such a scourge into the heir apparent's room, which made the old madam very dissatisfied. She was also stupid. What kind of eyes did she have? She harmed both her son and her husband. After leaving the old madam's courtyard, Ning Shu went to the Marchioness's courtyard. Ever since she fainted, the Marchioness's mental state had not been good. It was obvious that she was very angry. What's the use of being angry at yourself? We should work together to deal with the foreign soul. Now, she couldn't blame the heir apparent's inability to have children. It was clearly the man's fault. If they had to suffer, everyone would suffer together. The two men in the residence missed concubine Yen to the bone. However, they couldn't go to the old madam to ask for her. What if the old madam tormented concubine Yen even more? The two men who originally hated each other felt that the most important thing now was to rescue concubine Yen. As for the problem after that, it was a matter between the two men. In the original plot, the heir apparent didn't know that his father had given him a green hat. No one fought with him for it. He generously gave it to his good friends so that they could share it. He wanted to show them how good his skills were. Snatching food was popular. Now that someone was snatching it from him, the heir apparent felt that this woman was becoming more and more beautiful. She didn't send people out like in the original plot, causing a lot of trouble. Other than not accepting money for prostitution, she was not much different from a brothel girl. No, that's not right. Those who had money for prostitution had no luck. Actually, it was quite good. However, with their luck taken away, it wouldn't be long before their family fell into decline. Ning Shu thought about it this way. He was determined not to let these two men have sex with concubine Yen. Otherwise, their luck would be taken away and their family would fall into decline. How could the heir apparent enjoy a rich life? At night, the heir apparent came to ask about the situation. Ning Shu looked at the handsome heir apparent. Only she didn't feel anything. If the heir apparent came to ask about the concubine situation, he would probably be furious. Ning Shu smiled gently and gracefully. Heir apparent, the old madam said that if you want her back, you have to tell the old madam yourself. The heir apparent's expression immediately darkened. It made people feel uneasy. Ning Shu, it's useless to be angry with her sister. Go do it with the old madam. However, if the old madam insisted on not letting concubine Yen go, who knew what shocking things the two men, who were mesmerized by her beauty, would do? Ning Shu was really worried. The heir apparent didn't get the answer he wanted, so he turned and left. He didn't want to stay in Ning Shu's room. Ning Shu couldn't help but touch his face. Wasn't he beautiful enough? Chapter 2486. Ning Shu felt that the client's appearance was definitely that of a goddess. Moreover, she was the kind of lady from a respectable family. It seemed that being beautiful didn't necessarily mean that one would be a winner in life. The key was one's attitude. Attitude was very important. Loving oneself was very important. Their beautiful appearances were all the same, and their interesting souls were 1 in a million. Even if he played with himself, he would still be able to create a flower. There were plenty of people who were more beautiful than her in terms of appearance. She couldn't even compare to them. There was no end to it. Lingji watched numbly as the heir left the courtyard. She turned around and looked at Ning Shu in despair. Miss, what should we do? Concubine Yen is really the reincarnation of a vixen. Ning Shu was eating fruits leisurely. It'll be fine as long as the right time comes. The pent-up energy in this body was slowly dissipating. Her body was really refreshed. With such a good body, it should be easy for her to get pregnant. He could force himself on her and then live a good life with his child. It felt great. Lingji whispered to Ning Shu, Miss, what will the old madam do to concubine Yen? Will she sell her? Ning Shu shook her head. No. Selling her would only hurt the relationship between the old madam and the marquis. Moreover, the marquis was the head of the family. He hadn't done anything yet because of his mother. If his mother really went overboard, the marquis would probably fly into a rage. Right now, the old madam was also worried. Concubine Yen had been smashed in her hands. If she sent her back, would the father and son get into a dispute because of this woman? Would the father not be a father and the son not be a son? If she was killed, the two men in the family would cause a huge ruckus. Lingji was furious. Where did the madam find such a vixen? She's making the family restless. The restlessness in the family was all because of men. In addition, there was a man with a system who deliberately stirred up trouble. 3 men were enough to make a scene. In addition, there were 3 people here. The Marquis's residence was bustling. The Marquis's wife was so angry that she fell ill. Ning Shu brewed medicine for her every day and sent some spiritual energy into her body. What was the use of being angry? If the man died, the wife could just remarry. But if you died, there would be nothing left. You've angered some people, so they should be happy. Ning Shu was feeding the Marquise the medicine. The Marquise's face was dark the whole time. Hearing Ning Shu's words, her face became even darker. Do you know how to speak? Mother-in-law, His Highness also asked me to tell old madam to ask concubine Yen to come back. I don't know what to do. Without mother-in-law, I don't have enough confidence. Ning Shu felt wronged. You want to put her back? Dream on. The Marquise punched the quilt, gnashed her teeth and said, I will never let that vixen off. Ning Shu immediately said, Mother, keep your voice down. If father-in-law and the crown prince hear you, they will definitely be angry. You are too cowardly. You will be the mistress of the house in the future, you cannot be so soft-hearted. The Marquise took a deep breath and said. Ning Shu smiled and said, with mother-in-law here, everything will be fine. Your daughter-in-law just needs to be a soft-hearted daughter-in-law. Perhaps it was because her fighting spirit had been aroused, the Marquise was able to get out of bed that day. Then, she brought Ning Shu to the old madam's side and directly said to her, Mother, this concubine Yen belongs to this daughter-in-law. Let this daughter-in-law bring her back and teach her well. The old madam glanced at the 2 of them. One was her daughter-in-law, the other was her granddaughter-in-law. Now they wanted her to help their men. Both of them were so stupid. They couldn't resist their men's requests. This concubine Yen still needs to be taught. We will talk about it after a period of time. The old madam felt that she was going to be worried to death. All the women in the house were so stupid. The Marquise said, Your daughter-in-law also wants to teach that concubine Yen. How can I trouble mother with this kind of thing? Your daughter-in-law will teach her myself. The old madam thought for a while. Seeing the Marquise's angry face, she guessed that concubine Yen would definitely suffer a lot in the hands of her daughter-in-law. It would affect the relationship between her son and daughter-in-law. It might also affect the mother-son relationship between her daughter-in-law and her grandson. How could her daughter-in-law be so stupid? However, it wouldn't be good for this person to fall into her hands. Thus, the old madam generously handed concubine Yen over to the Marquise and let her torture her. If concubine Yen died, it would be her daughter-in-law's problem. Ning Shu didn't have any sense of presence. Among the 3 mothers-in-law, her status was the lowest. No matter what happened, it wasn't up to her to make the decision. Ning Shu felt that the Marquise was being a bit impulsive. When she calmed down, she would know that it wasn't a wise decision to let concubine Yen fall into her hands. Especially now that the 2 men in the house were obsessed with concubine Yen. Whoever made them uncomfortable would be their enemy. Whoever didn't let them be with concubine Yen would be their enemy. Concubine Yen passed from the old madam to the Marquise. Kneel. The Marquise directly made concubine Yen kneel. She raised her teacup and said coldly. Concubine Yen was speechless. These women really knew how to act. I told you to kneel. The Marquise directly threw the scalding hot teacup at concubine Yan's face. The cup was filled with hot water. If concubine Yen didn't dodge, she would definitely suffer. Concubine Yen dodged. The teacup fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. You actually dared to dodge. The Marquise was shocked and angry. I told you to kneel. Do you have any sense of seniority? Concubine Yen directly sat down and said to Ning Shu and the Marquise, I don't want to have any conflict with you. Your man, I will return him to you. Therefore, if there's nothing important, don't bother me. The marquise was stunned. Her eyes bulged as she looked at concubine Yen. Are you crazy? She was simply disgraceful. Ning Shu could understand concubine Yan's mentality. She didn't want to integrate into this era and look down on everything with a high and mighty attitude. She felt that she would leave sooner or later and wouldn't care about anyone. However, the marquise was furious. This concubine, who she had given to her son as a concubine, dared to be so impudent. Come, slap her. Slap her until she can't speak. The marquise was flustered and exasperated. Concubine Yen sighed. Are you sure you want to do this? Will the marquise and the heir let you go? Shameless, are you threatening me? The marquise stood up and pointed at concubine Yan's face. Concubine Yen was calm and composed. In comparison, the difference in temperament between the two was obvious. Concubine Yen was so strong-willed that the marquise didn't know what to do. This deadlock made it impossible for her to get out of the situation. Ning Shu shrank to the side and didn't say anything. This situation wasn't something a little wife like her could control. Moreover, Ning Shu didn't want to speak. He wanted to see what other tricks this concubine Yen had up her sleeves. Although concubine Yen was strong-willed, she was also a little desperate. Chapter 2487. This kind of situation would never happen when she was on a mission, especially in a world with a strict hierarchy. The less tolerant a world was, the more careful one had to be, especially in this era. Slap her. Slap her. The marquise was so angry that she staggered. Two servants walked towards concubine Yen. Concubine Yen sighed. It seemed that they had to use violence. Women in ancient times were troublesome. The two strong servants stretched out their hands and wanted to press concubine Yen to the ground. There were broken pieces of the teacup on the ground. They pressed concubine Yen directly on the pieces. It was not winter and she was wearing a lot of clothes. If they pressed her down, her legs and knees would definitely be injured. Concubine Yan's expression was ugly. She wanted to resist, but it would not do her any good. However, if she was injured, it would affect her progress in obtaining energy. If she was injured, how could she applaud for love? He did not mind competing with these ancient women. After thinking about it, concubine Yen decided to resist. She kicked the two servants in front of her away. The servants did not expect concubine Yen to resist. They were kicked to the ground and screamed as the pieces on the ground pricked them. How dare you! The marquise slammed the table. No one had ever been so presumptuous. A concubine dared to be so presumptuous. If she could not kill her, she would be the marquise for nothing. Catch her! The marquise was furious. The servants on the ground got up and grabbed concubine Yen. This time, concubine Yen did not resist. She was about to be pressed on the broken pieces. Stop! Master Ho strode in and scolded the two nannies. He kicked the nanny who was holding concubine Yen away. The two unlucky nannies fell to the ground again and cried out in pain. The crown prince supported concubine Yen and asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. Thank you, crown prince," concubine Yen said. Ning Shu saw that concubine Yen's servant girl had come with the marquise and the crown prince. Obviously, they were going to get help. Master Ho was a mature and handsome uncle. He was tall and straight. Compared with his son, who was thin and weak like a scholar, his body was stronger. He was muscular without clothes and thin with clothes on. He was not as delicate as his son, but he was full of masculine and handsome spirit. In addition, he was in a high position and had the aura of a superior. Such a man was full of masculine charm. Every woman was beautiful in her own way, and every man was handsome in his own way. Especially the charm that power gave to a man, it was even more indescribable. The arrival of the Marquis made the Marquis very angry. She glared at concubine Yan's personal maid with hatred. However, the Marquise still asked, why did the Marquis come here? Family management is not about punishing the servants. Punishing others is enough. There are so many broken pieces on the ground, but you ask them to kneel down. You are vicious. Master Ho said impolitely. The Marquise's body staggered twice, her face was pale and her face was filled with disbelief. The Marquise glanced at Ning Shu. Is it fun to play with them? Ning Shu grinned. It really looked like two vicious wives bullying a concubine. The concubine was so wronged and pitiful. Ning Shu bowed to the Marquis and said, I didn't make a scene. Mother went to the old madam to call concubine Yan back. Mother wanted to set some rules for concubine Yan, but concubine Yan didn't listen. Mother was so angry that she smashed the cup. Mother also wanted to teach concubine Yan what to do and what not to do, and then let her serve the crown prince well. Ning Shu almost said directly, this is your son's concubine. Why are you standing up for her, you shameless thing? The crown prince looked at Ning Shu. Since there is a conflict, why don't you try to persuade them? At this time, you are quite good at playing the blame game. Were the father and son colluding to favor the concubine and destroy the wife? They didn't want glory and wealth, but she had to help the client keep it. In ancient times, it was very difficult to make a living, especially for women. If they didn't work as a servant, they would have to do laundry and sew. They could even go blind from working so hard. Or they could go to the sea and have a pair of jade arms to sleep on. Ning Shu's face immediately paled like the Marquise's. Her heart felt extremely stifled. Crown Prince, don't you know how I treat you? Ning Shu held his heart. He didn't care whether he died or not. If it wasn't for the client, he would have castrated him. If he castrated him, the client wouldn't be able to have children. Anyway, in this era, it was the woman's fault that she couldn't have children. Even if the problem was with the man, he still attacked the woman. Ning Shu looked at the Marquis. Since the Marquis already had children, it didn't matter whether he had children or not. He could castrate him. Ning Shu's face was very sad. He was thinking about how to stop these two people from having sex with concubine Yan and being robbed of their luck. Concubine Yan looked at the two main wives and felt that they were really good actors. They were so good at acting. Without a man around, they both looked fierce and fierce. Now, they looked pitiful and delicate. The speed at which they changed their faces was really too fast. Concubine Yan didn't want to stay here anymore. She said directly to the Marquis and the Crown Prince, I don't want to stay here anymore. Please let me go. No. The two men said in unison. Ning Shu, the Marquis, things were so helpless. No matter how angry you were, it was useless. Marquis, do you have a conscience? I have been in charge of the house for so many years, taking care of the family, being filial to the elders, and raising children. Now you want to embarrass me because of your son's concubine. How can you do this to me? The Marquis was very unwilling. Like all the wives who had been betrayed, she cried and made a fuss. She was desperate and angry. As a man, he didn't like to be criticized by a woman. He might have felt a little ashamed, but the woman's series of questions turned into anger. I let you not worry about food and clothes. I let you become a high and mighty Marquis. You will live a luxurious life and have people to serve you. You will not be like a country bumpkin who does everything. What else are you dissatisfied with? You're either torturing this concubine or that servant all day long. You don't have the slightest tolerance for others. If you're so idle, then go to the manor and stay there. The ruthlessness and cruelty of a man when he shed all pretense of cordiality was something a woman could not imagine. The Marquis staggered and was about to fall to the ground. Ning Shu hurriedly held her and didn't let her fall. From now on, you two don't have to worry about concubine Yen. The Marquis said directly to them. Ning Shu lowered his head and said, I understand. The Marquis cried and grabbed Ning Shu's hand so tightly that it hurt Ning Shu. You don't have to leave the Marquis. The outside world is not so safe. It is very unsafe for a woman like you to be out there. The Marquis said to concubine Yen, how about staying in the manor? His gentle attitude was a far cry from his previous harsh attitude. Chapter 2488. Concubine Yen thought to herself that she had already offended the three most powerful women in the Marquis's household. She might as well leave the Marquis's household. As for the danger mentioned by the Marquis, concubine Yen didn't care about it at all. This kind of danger was exactly what she wanted. Especially the best men selected by the system. The higher the score, the better. Of course, this kind of man's family background and appearance wouldn't be too bad. Concubine Yen wanted to leave, but before she could collect enough energy, the mistress of the Marquis's household rolled her eyes. In ancient times, after a woman got married, she basically didn't have the chance to go out. She couldn't get in touch with other men. When would she be able to collect enough energy to leave this world? She really didn't like this world. She was bound by fame and collected energy very slowly. Marquis, I want to leave the Marquis's household. Please help me. Also, don't disturb the household because of Yen Yun. Concubine Yen bowed and said yes with a sincere expression. However, the two men misunderstood and thought that concubine Yen was really a considerate woman. The Marquis said excitedly, you don't have to leave the Marquis's household. No one can hurt you here. Concubine Yen, what I said is true. I really want to leave the Marquis's household. But concubine Yen's sincere words were misunderstood by everyone except Ning Shu. Ning Shu knew what concubine Yen meant. It would be easier to find a target if she left. You are my woman. You want to leave? Dream on. I promise that no one can hurt you here. The Marquis said solemnly and looked at the Marquis's wife. Mother, you won't hurt concubine Yen, right? The Marquis's wife almost fainted. She didn't feel good and couldn't say anything. The two most important men in her life, her husband and son, both sided with the same woman. Ning Shu bowed and said, concubine Yen belongs to the Marquis's household. Naturally, you don't have to leave. As long as concubine Yen follows the rules, the Marquis's household can take care of one person. You can rest assured about this. The Marquis's wife couldn't say anything. As for Ning Shu's words, she couldn't refute them. She just waved her hand weakly. The Marquis nodded with satisfaction. Very good. The Marquis nodded. Yes. Ning Shu said in her heart, awesome. In any case, as long as concubine Yen stayed in the Marquis's manor, there were plenty of ways. But how could they not clap for concubine Yen? Concubine Yen was very disappointed. She really wanted to leave the Marquis's estate. Concubine Yen did not stay in the Marquis's courtyard for long before she returned to her own courtyard. Madame Dowager put her hand to her forehead when she heard this. She knew that this would be the result. Madame Dowager had an advantage in terms of status, so Master Ho and heir apparent did not dare to say anything. However, they did not need to be polite to their wives who depended on them. He thought that he would be able to last a little longer, but in the end, it was so short. How disappointing. His ability was not good enough. Concubine Yen returned to her courtyard. Later, for some reason, the Marquis and the Crown Prince both fell ill and fainted. After fainting and lying on the ground for a long time, they caught a cold and caught a magnificent cold. It was mainly because Ning Shu felt that just fainting wasn't enough, so he sprinkled ice water on the two of them. When they were almost frozen, he evaporated the water on their clothes. In fact, the water droplets were not big. They were only the size of a fist. Ning Shu used all his strength to condense such a big water droplet. It was as if his body had been hollowed out. The water droplets fell on the stomach. The stomach was the easiest to catch a cold. In ancient times, a cold was fatal. When the two men in the family fell ill, the old madam was very anxious. She had to take care of her son and her grandson at the same time. Ning Shu stayed by the crown prince's side and did not leave his side at all. He wiped the crown prince's body and fed him medicine. He could not sleep at night. In short, he did what a wife should do. Although the marquise was angry and hated him, she still had to take care of her husband when he was sick. No matter what, this man was her pillar of support. During this period of time, when the marquis and the crown prince were sick, he had time to deal with concubine Yen. When the crown prince woke up, he asked Ning Shu to call concubine Yen over to serve him. He wanted to see concubine Yen. Ning Shu was speechless. Sometimes, it really made him feel helpless. If it was the client, he would probably be furious. Ning Shu was still smiling. He nodded and said, "Okay, just wait." Ning Shu personally went to concubine Yan's courtyard. This was the first time Ning Shu met concubine Yan alone. Concubine Yan bowed to Ning Shu and asked, "Is there anything I can help you with?" "Yes, the crown prince is sick. He wants you to take care of him. It is your honor that the crown prince likes you." Ning Shu approached concubine Yen. "You are indeed a beauty." Concubine Yen felt that ancient people were really troublesome. One moment, they would do this and the next, they would do that. It was not like the modern world, where everyone would be happy after being intimate with each other. Concubine Yen had no choice but to take care of the crown prince. Every day, she would pour him tea, drink his medicine, and feed him. Ning Shu was very relaxed. He would hypnotize someone and say that concubine Yen was a demon. The marquis and the crown prince had been hollowed out and their vitality had been sucked dry. If one's body was not good, they would fall sick easily. In any case, the old madam was very superstitious. When she was young, there were all kinds of internal strife, such as humiliating a concubine, aborting a child, killing a servant, and so on. But when she was old, whether it was for peace of mind or to atone for her sins, she especially believed in such things. When this matter reached the old madam's ears, the more she thought about it, the more convinced she became. She immediately went to invite a senior monk from the imperial Buddhist temple to take a look. He wanted to see if there was really a demon in the manor. The senior monk, who was wearing a kasaya, walked around the manor. He looked at everyone in the manor, including the servants. His gaze moved back and forth between Ning Shu and concubine Yen. Ning Shu's expression was calm. Sister has the destiny of an empress. She has the destiny of an empress. She is more than qualified to be the crown prince's consort. The senior monk took a pen and wrote a poem on a piece of paper. He said that the mystery was hidden in it. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. Just say it directly. Why did he like to play with Buddhist scriptures? The old madam respectfully took the paper and added a lot of money to the temple. Anyway, Ning Shu didn't know what the poem was about. The old madam's attitude towards her was much better. She was much more amiable, as if she was her own granddaughter. Ning Shu was speechless. What was wrong with her? Don't be so strange. She was a little scared. That senior monk must have said something to the old madam. That was why the old madam was so scary. The old madam didn't allow concubine Yen to serve the crown prince. Otherwise, her vitality would be sucked dry and the fortune of the manor would be affected. The entire manor couldn't be affected because of this vixen. The master said that this woman's destiny clashed with the marquise. She couldn't stay in the marquise manor. Otherwise, the fortune, wealth, and splendor of the marquise manor would be wiped out and a disaster would befall. Chapter 2489. Ning Shu got goosebumps from the old lady's gaze. She usually ignored this granddaughter-in-law. Anyway, this granddaughter-in-law was taught by her mother-in-law. Now that she looked like this, could it be that the old monk said something that made the old lady misunderstand? Ning Shu asked directly, "Madam, what did the monk say? Did it have anything to do with my granddaughter-in-law?" The old lady said, "The monk said you're blessed and bring good fortune to your husband." Ning Shu chuckled in his heart. This blessing was exchanged for by the soul energy of the person who asked for it. In exchange for the prosperity of the house of Marquis and the fate of the person who asked for it. Without the soul energy, the person who asked for it might not even be able to give birth to another person in the next life. Ning Shu immediately smiled shyly, "Thank you, madam. I don't have much good fortune. With you around, that's my true fortune." The old lady was very kind. She looked at Ning Shu with satisfaction. Ning Shu bowed and left quickly. The old lady grounded Aunt Yen in the courtyard and did not allow her to come out. The old lady recited scriptures for a long time in front of the merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva. Then, she decided to beat Aunt Yen to death. Then, she would invite the monk to expiate her sins. For the safety of the house of Marquis, she could only be the bad person for once and atone for her sins. Aunt Yen was speechless. After experiencing so many worlds, this was the most dramatic ancient person he had ever seen. She was always mysterious and he did not know what she wanted to do. Now, she was treated like a demon. As for the Marquis and the Crown Prince's illness, it was a cold according to modern terms. It was all because of the flu. It had nothing to do with him. Aunt Yen decided to leave the house of Marquis. It was easy for him to do that. He just had to use a big move and everyone in the house of Marquis fainted. Ning Shu fell to the ground and used all his strength to set up a barrier. Damn it, the lower the level of the plane, the greater the restriction. Aunt Yen opened the gate of the house of Marquis and wanted to leave. She bumped into the barrier as if she had bumped into a brick. Aunt Yen touched her head and touched the invisible barrier. She quickly asked the system, "What's going on? I can't get out." The system said, It's a barrier. Was it set up by those monks? Are there really such powerful people in this era? Hurry up and break the barrier. Let's go. The people here are crazy." Concubine Yen held her forehead and said, "I'll give it a try." The system said, "If it doesn't work, we'll leave this world. There is no mission that I cannot complete. I will only leave this world when I have no other choice." Concubine Yen said. As someone who could collect energy perfectly every time, she definitely wouldn't back down just because of a little difficulty. The man who traveled through time would never admit defeat. Ning Shu had spent a lot of effort to set up a small barrier, but it was broken. Ning Shu fell to the ground and gritted his teeth to set up another barrier. He then dripped some green water into the bodies of the unconscious people. The unconscious people slowly woke up. Ning Shu also pretended that he had just woken up, with a confused and stupid look on his face. As soon as the old madam woke up, she immediately thought that the evildoer must have used a witchcraft on them, which was why everyone was unconscious. The old madam felt that the responsibility on her shoulders was incomparably heavy. She was already so old, but she still had to worry. Concubine Yen was still breaking the barrier at the door when the old madam rushed to the door with a group of servants. "Capture her." The old madam pointed at Concubine Yen and shouted loudly. The old madam's body wasn't very good, but she could still be so energetic. It was all because of the liquid that was filled with vitality. Although it was only one drop, it was enough to revitalize her body. The old madam's condition had never been better. Concubine Yen was speechless. Why did she wake up so quickly? The system's ultimate move was useless. What a scam. The servants surrounded Concubine Yen. Concubine Yen sighed silently. She tidied up her clothes and said to the old madam, "Is this necessary?" The old madam was expressionless. "Evildoer. I came here for a mission. Once it's completed, I will leave. There is no need for you to do anything." Concubine Yen was a bit annoyed. Why did they have to make things so complicated? Were they crazy? Evildoer harmed the Marquis's manner. The great master was right. The old madam's expression was cold. Her eyes were filled with deep hatred for Concubine Yen. Ning Shu, who had just arrived, heard this and was speechless. You could leave after completing the mission, but people who were robbed of their fate usually didn't have a good ending. Although all living things were equal, some people were born with fate. They would always have a better life than ordinary people. When this fate disappeared, they would no longer be able to bear the glory and wealth. Of course, their family would be ruined or their family would fall. Ning Shu thought about it again. Did Concubine Yen not know what she was collecting? She was only talking about energy. But did she know what this energy was? The system probably told Concubine Yen to find a man with fate. As for why, the system didn't say. No one in the world would do something so strenuous and unrewarding. The system wouldn't do something like this either. Was the system really so kind as to let you travel through different planes so that you could have a casual relationship with all kinds of men? It would even turn from a casual relationship into the love of the chosen man's life. This kind of person was clearly here to rob someone of their fate. Why were they being so unreasonable and annoying? Don't disturb me. The servants rushed forward, wanting to grab Concubine Yen. In the end, when they got close, they were all sent flying. They fell to the ground and fainted. The old madam and the Marquis's wife looked at Concubine Yen in horror. "You, what kind of sorcery did you use?" Concubine Yen charmingly stroked her hair. As a woman, of course she was very beautiful. However, when Ning Shu thought that her soul was a man's, he felt very disgusted. He didn't feel too good. The old madam didn't know what to do. This woman could use sorcery. Others couldn't get close to her at all. Ning Shu set up a barrier around Concubine Yen so that she couldn't move. Concubine Yen suddenly felt that her body was bound by something. She found that she couldn't move. She hurriedly said to the system, "Why can't I move? It seems to be a barrier." Were the people here really so powerful? The system was a bit scared. It was actually a very weak system. Otherwise, it wouldn't use such a direct method to rob the fate of heaven and earth. Then help me remove the barrier. I can't move. I'm going to be caught and beaten to death. He looked at the old madam staring at him like a wolf. It looked like she wanted to eat him alive. "I'll try," the system said weakly. It had used up a lot of energy to break the barrier. Chapter 2490. I can't break it, the system said weakly. Concubine Yen was speechless. What's going on? This damned system. Is there any other way? Concubine Yen felt like she was tied up by thousands of ropes. She couldn't move at all. Ning Shu dripped some water on the unconscious servant on the ground. The servant shook his head and woke up. Catch her. The old madam pointed at Concubine Yen. The servant was afraid and didn't dare go forward. After all, the other party was a demon who could use witchcraft. I'll do it myself. The old madam was a rich madam. Now she had to do it herself. Concubine Yen watched as the old madam walked over with her walking stick. She raised the stick and knocked it down on her head. Although Concubine Yen was in this body, she felt like her head was going to explode from the pain. Her eyes rolled back and she fainted. The old madam felt a little guilty. But when she saw that she had knocked the demon unconscious, she didn't feel so scared anymore. She was indeed protected by Bodhisattva. Tie her up. The old madam saw that she was the only one in the family who could fight. She felt lonely and pressured. The granddaughter-in-law didn't say anything. Although she was stupid, she had a good life. Daughter-in-law, She was so blind that she had stuffed such a vixen into her grandson's room. If she hadn't caused trouble, would all this have happened? The servant tied up the unconscious concubine Yen tightly and locked her up. The room's windows were boarded up and the door was locked with 2 locks. Ning Shu praised the old madam. "Old madam, you're so powerful. Even the servant couldn't get close to you. You actually knocked her out. You're really lucky. Even demons and ghosts are afraid of you." After all, they were 1 generation apart. The old madam didn't treat the client as harshly as the marquise. She urged the client to have a child every day and attacked the client from every angle. If the client didn't have a child, they weren't fit to be a woman. The old madam smiled. "In the future, if anyone comes to the marquise manor, you have to be careful. Don't let anyone like this enter the manor." Ning Shu sighed and glanced at concubine Yen, who was lying on the bed like a caterpillar. Now, she couldn't get out. She couldn't obtain luck from other men to strengthen the system. She couldn't escape. When the time came, where would she go to find him? With so many planes, it would be very difficult to find him. In any case, Ning Shu didn't take the lead in this mission. It was all thanks to the old madam. The marquise was probably furious. She wasn't in the right state of mind the whole time. Ning Shu moved closer to the matriarch and asked, "Old madam, I don't think we should treat concubine Yen like this. Now that father-in-law and the heir are both sick, they will be angry if they find out that we treated concubine Yen like this." The old madam glared at Ning Shu. "Useless. Since they don't want to give up, then let's see what kind of demon this concubine Yen is. I don't believe that men will be so loyal to a woman who eats humans. Ning Shu, the old madam is so mighty." When concubine Yen woke up, she found that she was tied up. The room was dark and the windows were sealed. The room was covered with talismans. There were all kinds of drawings on the talismans. Concubine Yen was speechless. She wasn't a demon. Even if the talismans were real, they wouldn't work on her. She was very cautious when she came to this world. She didn't expect that she would still be treated like an alien. It would be better if she was in the modern world. If something was discovered in the modern world, people would at most say that she was sick. It wasn't like the ancient world where she was treated like a monster or a demon. "Can you untie me?" Encountering such a deceitful system was one of the toughest things in her life. Although she didn't have to turn a man gay if she transmigrated into a woman, there were many restrictions. She might as well transmigrate into a man and turn a man gay. Even a man with a straight iron bar could turn into a mosquito coil. It was one thing to become a woman, but she was still a concubine. This was just a plaything. Master could do whatever he wanted with her. "Even if you untie her now, how are you going to get out? This room is sealed. You might as well find a chance to sneak out," said the system. "Then can't I just leave?" Concubine Yen was really sick of this world. Women in the ancient world were virtuous, but when it came to women who stole their husbands, they would do all kinds of harm. She hated them in her heart, but she still had to pretend to be magnanimous. Wasn't she afraid that her heart would become twisted? "The energy of this world isn't full, so you can't leave," said the system weakly. It sounded really pitiful. Concubine Yen rubbed her face. She was really helpless against such a weak system. She felt that the system was just like a child. Concubine Yen could only look at the sky helplessly. She looked at the ceiling. Her stomach was growling. No one gave her anything to eat when she was hungry. Would they burn her to death? Although he was also a man, he had to admit that men were really unreliable. What these men said in bed was really fake. Now that he was tied up like this, no one came to see him, let alone say a word to save him. It seemed like she could only save herself. The next day, the weather was fine. The old madam brought Ning Shu and the Marquis's wife to a sealed room. The Marquis and the Crown Prince were also supported by the manservant. The whole family was here. "Mother, what are you doing? Tying me up?" The Marquis's face was red. It was obvious that he hadn't recovered yet. His body was weak. Even the Crown Prince's chin was thin and sharp. When he saw his beloved woman tied up like this, he immediately looked at his mother and wife with condemnation. The Marquis's wife didn't want to say anything. Her son and husband were both unreliable. What was there to look forward to in this life? Although her heart was dead, when she saw her son looking at her like this, she felt really bad. She hated concubine Yen for seducing her husband and son. A mother spent 5 years to teach a child how to put on his pants. A wife only needed 5 seconds to make a man take off his pants. As a mother, the last thing she wanted to see was a man forgetting about his mother when he had a wife. Now the Marquis's wife was experiencing this. Moreover, this woman was given to her son by her. This feeling was even more heartbreaking. Compared to this situation, the Marquis's wife would rather force her son to have a child with her daughter-in-law than give her son a woman. This made her lose face in front of the old madam. Her daughter-in-law might also resent her. Both her son and her husband hated her. The Marquis's wife's heart was cold. "Mother, what are you doing?" the Marquis said weakly. The old madam ignored her son. She asked the manservant to bring 2 chairs for the 2 sick men to sit down and watch the show. If she killed her directly, the 2 men in the family would hate her. That woman would always be in their hearts. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.